This
work,
conference will now be recorded.
Muting your microphone. So Steve, the floor is yours, and then we'll get started with our meeting. Steve?
Can't hear you.
Yep, I can hear myself speaking again. All right, here we go. How about this? Now I got to practice. Welcome to tonight's meeting. Just some rules of etiquette on the virtual meetings. Please keep yourself muted either by if you're on a phone, use your mute button on your phone. You can also, if you're on your phone, you can use *6 to mute and unmute yourself. If there's multiple phones or computers being used, make sure you're muting the ones you're not using so that we don't get feedback. If I do get feedback, I'll just mute that line if we need to at that point in time. If you would like courtesy of the floor, there is a chat feature. If you're on the computer version, you can send a chat to show you on a list for courtesy of the floor. When we do get to courtesy of the floor, for those of you that do not have the chat option right now, we will ask for that at that time. Tori, I think the floor is yours.
Thank you, Steve, very much. Again, I'd like to welcome everybody to the June 3rd meeting of the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners. Renee, we do need to do a roll call vote first, and we'll do that before the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would mind.
Sure. Commissioner Walk?
Here.
Commissioner Seton?
I know he's here. I saw him. Joe Seton.
I see him.
Commissioner Seton?
He's probably on mute. You see him? Does he have his screen up?
It looks like his screen froze. His computer might have frozen.
Okay. All right. Just keep going, Renee.
Commissioner Mobilio?
Present.
Commissioner Kelly?
Here.
Commissioner Morgan?
Here. I think you forgot Commissioner Walk. Or did you get him? You got him in the first one?
Yeah.
Yep.
We're just waiting on Seton. So is Joe back on? He is on the call though. I can't see his screen. He's good? Steve?
It actually looks like he's frozen right now. Although I'm getting a little bit of mic from him.
Okay. All right. Well, while we're waiting for Joe to get connected, if everybody would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, I would greatly appreciate that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which
it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to note that all public sessions of the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners are electronically recorded. The electronic record is kept until the minutes of the meeting are approved and destroyed if a request is not made to retain the electronic version at that time. With that being said, prior to starting our meeting this evening, we've received a lot of comments and concerns and questions, and I'd like to start things off by saying the Board of Commissioners is aware of the recent Facebook post by Mr. Matt Mobilio. I'd like to note that the post does not express the views or position of South Whitehall Township as a municipal agency or this Board of Commissioners. Mr. Mobilio spoke out on Facebook as a private citizen unassociated with the township. This board will not attempt to speak for Mr. Mobilio, nor will this meeting become a referendum on private citizen Mobilio's personal conduct or views. Mr. Mobilio can speak for himself if and when he chooses to do so. I do note that some Facebook posts are calling for his removal from office, and we would just like to note for the record that removal from office is something entirely beyond the authority of this township board. Later this evening, I will open the meeting up to public comment during the courtesy of the floor. I see many of you have asked for courtesy of the floor, and we will certainly allow for that. But I want to remind everybody that we do not have in South Whitehall Township, rules and regulations for the conduct of public meetings under the Sunshine Act. It is my intent to follow those rules. We will have 5 minutes per person limit, and we will not allow comments that are scandalous, impertinent, redundant, or designed to disrupt. There'll be no personal attacks allowed, and comments may not be argumentative with others. It is our intent to keep the meeting civil and moving along so we can end at a decent time this evening. So I do appreciate everybody's cooperation on that. I do know that there are lots of people who'd like to speak, and they certainly will have the right to do that. With that being said, Mr. Mobilio has asked to make a comment, but again, we won't be entertaining any further discussion on this until the end of the meeting. So that being said, Mr. Mobilio, I'll hand things over to you for your comment.
Thank you, President Morgan. I've asked President Morgan to let me make a brief statement before we get down to township business. By now, everyone on this call knows about a post that I made on my personal Facebook page that Parkland School Board member Patrick Foose and others have aggressively shared on social media. The post was ill-conceived, it was in poor taste, and I deeply regret what I said. I apologize to the citizens of the township, to my fellow board members, and anyone else who may have been offended by my post. I know that many of the people on this call today are here to ask for my resignation. Some of my fellow board members may even do the same tonight. Some requests for my resignation may be legitimately based on a sincere belief that my personal politics will somehow affect my ability to govern, despite the commissioner's position being apolitical and that our issues do not in any way involve partisan political issues. But from the threats that I've received over this incident and the social media posts that I've seen, it is my belief that the vast majority of those calling for my resignation are individuals with a political or other agenda. With that being said, everyone will be given the opportunity to express their outrage, real or otherwise, at what was posted on my Facebook page. But if it is your intent to use this forum to attempt to intimidate or even simply to encourage me to resign, then I'm afraid this meeting will leave you sorely disappointed, because under no circumstances and no matter what anyone plans to say tonight, I will not resign. I will not resign today. I will not resign tomorrow. I will not resign next week. What I will do is, after everyone has said their piece, I'll get back to the work of the township that over 2,000 voters sent me here to do in November. I will continue.
Ryan Wiggerton, can please mute your phone.
We mute the other line.
I will continue to do that work that the voters sent me here to do until no sooner than January of 2024 when my term expires. Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to move into our business at hand tonight for the township. I'd like to start with the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes are in the board's packet for consideration. They are the May 20th Board of Commissioner meeting minutes. I'll give the board a chance to take a quick purview through those meeting minutes and entertain any questions or comments prior to possible adoption. Are there any questions? We had every commissioner was present for that particular meeting, the May 20th meeting. Were there any questions or comments on the May 20th meeting minutes? Hearing none, do I hear a motion for adoption of the May 20th meeting minutes?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Stetton. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Mobilio. Can I have a roll call vote, please, Renee?
Commissioner Walk,
Aye.
Commissioner Seton,
Aye.
Commissioner Mobilio, Commissioner Kelly,
We do have a lot of background noise. If you're not speaking, could you please put your mics on mute? That would be great. Thank you.
Commissioner Kelly, did I hear?
Yes, aye.
Okay. Commissioner Morgan.
Aye. Motion carries and minutes passed. Thank you. Next this evening, for consideration and possible adoption, we have an ordinance amending the South Whitehall Township zoning ordinance by amending section 350-24C5R3 low density residential zoning district schedule, section 350-24C6R4 medium density residential zoning district schedule, section 350-24C7R5 medium density residential zoning district schedule, and section 350-24C8R10 high density residential zoning district schedule, and section 350-24C14 HC1 highway commercial 1 zoning district schedule to allow for a maximum height of 40 feet for residential buildings and providing for a severability clause, retention of rights to enforce clause, a repealer clause, and effective date. Mr. Zader, would you like to present on this one, please?
Thank you, President Morgan. I will now open a public hearing on this proposed ordinance. And as with other public hearings, the purpose of this is to, first of all, inform the public of the proposed ordinance, and secondly, to provide an opportunity for public comment. Format this evening, following preliminary information that I'll be providing, is to provide an opportunity for the staff to give an overview of the substance of the ordinance and to provide an opportunity for the applicant, which is Mr. David Pisacco or his representatives, to present what they would like to present. And then following that, we'll have Board of Commissioners questioning and any public comment that may exist. I would note that, for the record, this has been duly advertised. The Planning Commission of this township has reviewed and endorsed this, and the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission has similarly reviewed this as required by the municipality's planning code. It has been advertised for possible adoption, so at the conclusion of the public hearing, should the board wish to do so, it is poised for that vote. With that said, Mr. Kinney, would you like to present an overview of the ordinance itself?
I had it. I might need 1 second here. I had. Hold on. Give me just a brief second here.
Take your time, George.
I'm trying to find my.
Hey, Tori, while he's looking for that, we had one person ask for courtesy of the floor, but they don't actually have a name on their box. It's just a made up name. So I'm not adding that person unless they want to change their name or give their name.
Actually, we do need we do need, for the record, your name for courtesy of the floor. So if you're interested, you need to provide your name and address, please.
Okay, good to go?
We're good to go, George Kinney.
All right, my apologies. I had it open and somehow it closed on me. So just very briefly, I will just kind of run through the relevant hearing dates and talk a little bit about the Planning Commission discussion that led us to this evening. This kind of began back in November of last year, where the Board of Commissioners, through courtesy of the floor, heard and considered a request from an attorney representing Blue Barn Meadows. Specifically, the request was to amend the zoning ordinance to allow an increase of the maximum height limitation for townhouses from the required 35 feet to a proposed 40 feet. The Board of Commissioners at that time then directed staff to review the proposal and report back. Later in November of 2019, the Planning Commission informally considered the requests. They were generally in favor of reviewing a formal proposal, but directed staff to solicit opinions from the Public Safety Commission. Staff then took the matter to the Safety Commission in January of this year. They did consider the matter and indicated no concerns with the proposal as requested, and did affirm that their firefighting apparatus could reach that height relatively routinely and safely. A few days later in January, following a brief update to the BOC on January 15, this board directed the applicant to submit a formal application for the Planning Commission review and Board of Commissioner consideration. Planning Commission heard that request formally on February 20 of this year. They did unanimously recommend the matter to the Board of Commissioners as proposed. Later in February of 2020, the amendment was transmitted to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission for their mandatory review. They did find the request to be a matter of local concern and generally consistent with the future LV regional plan. And then, as you'll recall, on May 6th, not too long ago, the Board of Commissioners did authorize this motion to proceed with advertising, which leads us to tonight's hearing. Four brief considerations that was discussed at the Planning Commission before it was recommended to the Board of Commissioners. The initial application did ask for a height increase in specific districts, that being the R5 and R10 district. Following Planning Commission and staff review, however, it was determined that the maximum height limitation for residential building should be made consistent throughout all residential zones. That was primarily to ease enforcement, provide consistent regulations, and more closely mirror the intent of the NPC. So this recommendation includes a few more districts, including the residential 3 and residential 4 zones. The 40-foot maximum height limitation for residential buildings is already in place, as you all know, in the rural residential, residential 2, rural residential 2, rural residential 3, and residential 2 zoning districts. We wanted to point out, however, apartment buildings are not, and I repeat, not proposed to be included in this amendment, as they are considered to be both residential and commercial in nature and already have options for greater height in place in other districts. The last item I just wanted to point out is a question did arise during the Planning Commission review. Is there a minimum floor height mandated by the Uniform Construction Code so we can be assured that a 4th floor couldn't be added to a particular building? We did run that by the chief building official in the township, and he, I quote, "The minimum height of any habitable room is 7 feet. In order for buildings to stay under the International Residential Code, to be considered single family, 2-family, and townhouse dwellings, instead of under the International Building Code to be considered apartments, condos, the maximum number of floors is capped at 3 stories above grade point." With that, that's really a history and introduction to the project, and I will, I guess, turn it back over to Joe to conduct the meeting.
Thanks, George. I would just note for the record that all evidence of appropriate advertising and notifications is in the township file, should there ever be a question or anybody needs that information. That having been said, Dave Pisacco or anyone representing Dave Pisacco, are you here this evening?
Yeah, this is Dave Pisacco.
Dave, would you like to make a presentation? I understand you may have a few exhibits that I believe Steve Carr is prepared to present for view.
Well, I don't know, unless I was assuming that these were sent to everybody by Greg. I had pictures that I sent Greg and drawings I had sent Greg. Does nobody have them?
Dave, I think the public,
Dave, they are up on.
we didn't know until tonight who from the public will be present. So this will be the first time members of the public are seeing it.
So Dave, they are up on the screen. I'm on page 1 of those and can move through those as you need. You just guide me on.
Can we?
You know,
please?
I guess Greg must have added the numbers. I don't have page numbers.
Hold on one second.
I have the first page of what you guys sent over. I don't. Maybe it was scanned in, but Tori, I'm looking for a way to curb comments, but I don't think I can.
Can you? Is there a way to mute all the other callers, or at this point, just so we can get respect to the presenters?
I will try to take care of people as they come on.
Okay, thank you. And please curb the chats until these presenters are done. Please show them the respect that they deserve for this meeting. So there will be an opportunity to talk at courtesy of the floor. So let's hold till then, please. Thank you. Mr. Pisacco. Sorry.
I can see people on the screen, but I don't see any picture or plan on the screen anywhere.
Yeah, I see the plan.
Yeah. What I'm looking at, I'm only seeing people's faces. I do not see a plan. Can somebody describe what's on the first page?
You may
Yeah.
want to shift left on the computer screen. Swipe left, shift left to see the.
Dave, what's up now is labeled as A4, sheet A4.
Okay, that is just okay. That's just the front elevations of the same townhouses, one with the lower pitch and one with the higher pitch, and you can see the higher pitch. It just looks better, and in real life, it looks a whole lot better than it does here, because this is not the perspective you get when you look at it from standing on the ground. This is if you were 20 foot tall. This is the perspective you would have. There's a photograph on one of the other pages that shows a picture, if you're actually standing on the ground, how flat those roofs actually appear. And in fact, they would appear even flatter now, because with the new insulation requirements, the lower part of the roof has to be higher so we don't compress insulation, which flattens the roof pitch even more. So if you show the page that shows the 3-story townhouses, and you'll see how flat they look now, they're going to get even worse under the new rules.
Yep. Yeah, we're showing the ones with the red cars in the front right now.
Right, and that's under the old rules, and it will get more. It will be even more flat than that. And I gave pictures also with just 2-story units that have higher roof pitches, and you can just see how much better it looks with a higher roof pitch. And that's all. That's the only reason we're asking for this. We just want it to look better. We're not trying to save money. We're not trying to, get more square footage. All we want to do is make it look nicer.
Well, it definitely makes a difference in the appearance of the
Yeah,
build.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah, it's just more like a pride and ownership type of thing. And it just, to me, unless I'm missing something, there seems to be no downside and only upside.
Dave, is there anything else that you have?
I think I also have another page that just showed the side elevations, and you can just see how squatty it is. On the one's really kind of squatty looking, and the other one looks nice. That's all. The whole request is just to try to make it look as nice as we can make it.
Does the board have any questions, either of Mr. Pasacco or Mr. Kinney?
I do not. Is there anybody else on the board who has any questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. This is Diane Kelly. I thank you for your presentation and photos of this development. It gives us a clear picture of what you're talking about. And I'm certainly in favor of approving the height increase that you need for this development.
I appreciate that.
Any other comments or questions from any commissioner?
Yeah, this is Mike Welk. I'll make the same comment I made the last time. I saw this presentation many months ago, and I believe the reason for the request for this development was valid. It is aesthetics, and I would approve it for this specific development. If the vote is for all the other zones, then that's a different matter altogether.
And why is that?
Because I think we need to evaluate what we're doing in the township as far as building heights, since we have a mixture of different building heights across the zones.
Does any other commissioner have a comment or a question?
I was just going to follow up. As a township, we are working through a comprehensive plan which will lead to zoning changes potentially. So it's a more global issue that we're looking at as a township.
I believe we asked George to to look into the potential impact to the other zoning areas, and there was virtually none. If I remember correctly, I don't believe this was an issue that would affect any of those other zoning areas. So, you know, in my opinion, it makes sense. I support the change as well. Joe or Matt, do you have any comments, questions, thoughts?
No, I think we've talked about this one on several occasions, so I'm certainly satisfied.
Joe Stetton, Commissioner Stetton? We'll assume silence is no comment at this point from Commissioner Stetton. Attorney Zader?
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this proposal? And Steve, I'll let you take charge of calling people and identifying people.
As of now, I do not see anyone in the chat room that has asked to specifically speak on this matter.
Okay. Going once, going twice.
My comment would be that I would always. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Uh-oh. He can't hear
I'm
us.
trying. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Joe, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Yes.
So, all right. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Let me
Your
turn off
comment,
my.
your comment was, yeah.
Bear with me for 1 minute. Okay, I think I'm trying to get. Oh, no. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You got. I'm going to deal with the background in a minute.
We can hear you clear, Joe. We do not hear anything else in the background right now.
Yep, you're good. If you want to just give your comment, Joe, you had some thoughts?
My comment was I would always like to see peaked roofs rather than flat roofs, and I think that's a very good thing to do. So I will support the change.
Mr. Carr, you had indicated a moment ago that there was no one in the chat group on this topic. Is that still the case?
Correct.
Very good. Then based on that, I will close the public hearing. President Morgan, we're poised for a vote. Should that be the pleasure of the board?
Thank you, Attorney Zader. Thank you, Mr. Pisacco. And thank you, George. That being said, no comments. Do I hear a motion for approval amending the ordinances expressed earlier?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Stetton. Do I hear a second? I'll make a second. Second from Commissioner Morgan. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Walk,
Go.
Commissioner Stetton.
Yep.
Commissioner Kelly.
I'd like to thank the developer for bringing this matter to us. I would approve for the zoning district that he's talking about, but I will not agree to making the sweeping changes throughout all of our districts. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to vote no.
Okay. Commissioner Mobilio.
You know, this is something, again, that we talked about at length, and we never really got, in my opinion, a good answer as to why it should be changed across the township, other than just to make everything even and equal. So I'm also going to vote no.
Commissioner Morgan.
I vote yes. So we
Commissioner Morgan,
had,
is it possible to make a motion to approve the zoning district that has to apply to this particular development this evening, even though it wasn't advertised as a single?
I believe you'd have to. Go ahead,
That
Joe.
would be a sufficient enough change that it would need to be re-advertised. And so that would not be ripe for a vote this evening.
So, motion does not carry. We had a 3-2 vote. Motion does not carry. If we choose, we'll have to come back and advertise a new ordinance and go through the entire process to move forward with just one of the districts. So,
Well, that's very
okay.
disappointing.
Yeah, it is. It is. I would tend to agree, because I think we've been through this numerous times. I don't feel that there would be an impact to the other districts based on other conversations. But
I mean, my concern obviously is only R5 and R10. Actually, even only R10. The others, that was the township decided to ask for all the other ones just to keep everything consistent.
Unfortunately, due to the major change in the ordinance, because of having all the districts in it, and we all had spoken about what the original reason was for that, which was primarily for fire truck, ladder trucks. I thought, honestly, we had an understanding of why that sweeping change made sense. But if we will have to go back to the drawing board and bring it back to just that one zoning district, if we would like to pursue this, which I believe for Mr. Pasacco, certainly makes sense. So it's, we would need to advise as a board to move forward to have this reviewed as just a single zoning district ordinance change.
Commissioner Morgan, is it possible that he could just go for a variance before the zoning board so that this just gets taken care of so he can move forward with his project?
This is George. I would say no. That's what.
You know what? We actually, yeah. Go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I would say no. That's what prompted this whole thing. There have been several requests for height variance changes, and that's why it's actually the zoning hearing board that asked developers to look for an ordinance change, so that basically the zoning hearing board wouldn't have to keep continuing to deny them. So I think the developers have been there, done that. I'm not sure that would be a good path for them to seek.
George, can I make a statement? George, it's Greg Adams. Can I make a statement?
Sure, Greg.
Hi. Yeah, that George is correct. The zoning hearing board has heard repeated requests for variances on height, and as you all know, there are fairly stringent standards within the zoning hearing board to granting these, and there has to be some sort of hardship, and really there is no hardship here, which is why they have consistently turned down such variances. I also want you to understand that this not only has to be re-advertised, it has to be rewritten and then sent to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission for their 45-day review before we can move it forward. So this is essentially a 3-month delay.
Mr. Pasacco, is that going to be an issue for you, the 3 months delay?
3 months isn't bad. More than that would be a problem, but 3 months is horrible.
I think we have a pretty.
Go ahead, Mr. Pasacco.
I just said no, 3 months would not be a big problem.
maybe that's what we should do then, if that's the case. Well,
Okay.
Just, and the other districts, probably it would be very unlikely that this would even come up. It's something that really is only going to come up in a high density area for the most part.
To be honest, the lower density districts were the first 40 feet height limitations were set. So they already exist at 40 feet in RR3, RR2, and RR, and I believe R2. So now if you just go to R5 and or R10, the only districts remaining with 35 feet height maximum limitation would be the R3, the R4, and the HC1.
Okay, so we talked about that before advertising it, and the board agreed, made a motion to advertise it. I don't understand why it's not approved now.
Yeah, I don't either. I have to agree with you, Joe. We've talked about all of this and the potential impacts to the other zoning districts and there was no impact. It doesn't make sense why we're holding on this, because we're going to come back to the same conclusion. And now we're holding up and going to spend more money just to re-advertise for that one area when we're going to come back to the same decision. It's disappointing. So I guess at this point then we can do Joe, I guess I'm struggling with this because it makes more sense to do it all at once, because eventually that's what we need anyways. But what you, Matt, you and Diane and Mike want is just only to make a change to that one zoning district. So that will mean developing a new ordinance, the advertising, everything that was just mentioned. So you don't want to consider anything with any of those other zoning districts. Is that the understanding?
That was what I've said continuously when we've had this topic, Commissioner Morgan. And, it's unfortunate that it didn't get advertised, because I know that Commissioner Mobilio as well as Commissioner Wilk had concerns at each meeting. So I know we've already voted on this, so I don't know what else.
Well, there's nothing else we can do at this point. All we can do is decide to direct staff to work on an ordinance for the single zoning districts. But why don't we send this back to staff for discussion and consideration and see where we come back to, certainly to address the specific zoning district that Mr. Pasacco had mentioned as well. So,
yeah.
I offer a question that might trim a little bit of time off of this. Since this has been essentially fully vetted, and we're heading now in a direction of just addressing the zoning districts that affect Mr. Pasacco, I think that staff can very handily make the necessary ordinance modifications, and then at that point, get it to the Township Planning Commission and the LVPC for the required time periods. And if the board this evening is amenable to authorizing advertising at the soonest available opportunity after the statutory periods have run, that may save a couple of weeks.
Good idea.
okay. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Very good. So we will touch base on that moving forward. All right. Next ordinance for consideration and possible adoption is an ordinance amending Chapter 50, Article 1, Township Manager of the Codified Ordinance of South Whitehall Township to restrict the Board of Commissioners and its members from appointment or removal of officers or staff in the administrative services of the township, and mandating the Board of Commissioners and its members address administration of the township through the Township Manager, and to provide for severability, retention of rights to enforce, repealer, and effective date. Joe, I'll hand this to you, but I will note that we had some conversation and, discussion on this at a previous meeting, and it had reached this point for possible adoption this evening. So, Joe, did you have anything you wanted to add on this one, or go through
That's
the process?
correct, President Morgan. It was discussed at the May 6th meeting, and at that meeting, I was directed to prepare an ordinance that would then be advertised for adoption. Tonight's the night for consideration for that adoption. And the summary that you gave, that you read a moment ago, is really it in a nutshell. I could read the language in the ordinance. It's not a lot different, but essentially it's a modification of the township manager ordinance, and you've summarized it already. So there's really nothing to add.
All right. Very good. Are there any questions or comments on this for the approval process from the board?
I certainly do have some questions. Is this a vote for adoption tonight or discussion?
This is a vote for adoption.
Okay, because I didn't realize it had actually been advertised. So maybe in the future, if we do put something out for advertisement, just like the Planning Commission does, if they could copy the commissioners so that we can see the ordinance, because I didn't get to see it until Monday. But yes, so on the May 6th meeting, Commissioner Mobilio did bring this topic to the board at the end of the meeting, and I just had some questions. I remember at that meeting that Commissioner Mobilio stated that several members of the administrative staff had come to him feeling under pressure doing their normal duties. And I guess just as a commissioner, I was unaware of this. And if there is a personnel issue or some overwhelming work going on, is that not something that we as a board would certainly discuss in executive session to see if we could talk it out and remedy it as a board? I'm just curious how this evolved to the
we
point
are not,
that someone
yeah, we are not
contacted one commissioner.
Are you suggesting that as board members we are involved with personnel matters? I'm confused at the question.
No, under the Sunshine Act, we're allowed to meet for personnel matters. So if a member of our administrative staff was feeling under pressure due to their normal duties, being inundated with requests, is that something that the full board certainly could discuss with our township manager also to work out a remedy?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. Actually, Chapter 50, the Township Manager's Contract and Appendix A, it actually describes this work process that Commissioner Kelly is talking about. It is the Township Manager's responsibility to manage the staff, all individual personnel, collective personnel issues, and when issues arise, it says in the documentation I just referred to that Township Manager shall inform the Board of Commissioners, and that would afford a pretty simple opportunity for a discussion to see what the issues are and whether they can be resolved. Hopefully resolved fairly quickly once everybody understands what the problem is. Everybody understands what the proposed corrective action or solution is. And then we just move on, and maybe there's a check back that did that solve the problem or not. That can be done, if we're all working together as a cooperative team, and we wouldn't have to pull out a 6-year-old ordinance from the archives in order to solve that problem.
I'll be perfectly honest. There's a process that needs to be followed. We are legislators. They are administrators. We need to be respectful of that process and the role in the chain of command. The ordinance clearly defines that chain of command. I think it's imperative for the proper functioning of the township, and I don't believe in any way, shape, or form this means that there'll be any information that will not be passed through the commissioners that needs to be passed through the commissioners. But what it will do is provide clarity on what that chain of command is. So in that respect, I feel very strongly about the process and how it should work. I fully support the ordinance. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Commissioner Morgan,
thank you.
I know that you are.
I don't think. Hold on. I don't think you addressed the point I made. So I'm going to come back to the point I made. There's
I
a said
wasn't
problem.
planning to address the point you made.
There's
I was making a
said
statement.
problem. I'm sorry. There's a said problem. The opportunity for our township manager to explain the problem to us and find the solution to the problem after we understand the problem. We don't know that this ordinance will solve the problem. We don't even know what the problem is exactly.
This ordinance is what is commonly found in many of the other townships and for structure and process. And I stand behind it. That's my opinion.
I have a question again, Commissioner Morgan. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Wilkie, you finished.
I guess I have nothing more to say on the point I made, except that I made it and it went nowhere. Nobody discussed it. Nobody answered the question.
I have a
I'll have
question.
I'll have other comments after we get through this work process on how things are supposed to work to resolve personnel issues. I'll have other comments to make.
So I believe that we had that ordinance before and it was removed, if I am correct, a few years ago. And I verified with some other townships, and it appears that the ones I verified have the same language as what we are proposing. So that's the way it should be. That's the way it was.
Commissioner Stettin, I actually found different information checking with other townships. They have a portion of this ordinance, but then we've got an additional sentence or two. So it is a little bit different, and that's fine. But I guess my question is if the administration I'm sorry. But if the administration was being overwhelmed with emails, I know that as a new commissioner, I'm trying to understand the process and better educate myself. I was appointed to the Finance Committee along with Commissioner Wolk, and we're working through a pandemic and the effects of it. And I certainly have emailed and asked for reports, and I also, with each board meeting, asked for selected copies of invoices in the packet that were asked as legislators to approve. And I guess I have a question because I understand that agenda packets for the last several years included, as common practice, finance reports and also copies of invoices. And I'm curious why that process had changed. What was different that this board isn't given them on a regular basis for the information of the board and those listening. It's my opinion it's good to know what I'm approving when I'm asked to approve hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money on invoices. There's been some missing invoices and whatnot that I've worked out with the township manager. People make mistakes and things get overlooked. And as someone who ran on a platform of transparency, open government, it's important for me and this full board to be educated. I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but I think we've all seen issues around the state regarding misuse of funds. Unfortunately, we've even had an embezzlement in the past. And as a commissioner responsible for the approval of funds, it's something that we need to make decisions because it's our duty as a board to be diligent in protecting taxpayer money. I'm not sure how this ordinance will change. I do make my request through the township manager, and I copy all of the board members. So I'm not sure what part of the process I have not been following.
Well, Diane, I don't think anybody pointed this ordinance as directed to you, so I'm not sure why you're feeling the need to cover yourself on that. I think this is all about process, and that's really and chain of command. That's all it is. It's nothing more.
Morgan, when Commissioner Mobilio proposed this ordinance on May 6th, he said that the administrative staff was being inundated with requests for emails. And I know that I personally have done that before each board meeting. So I know that I have made requests.
Did you ask through Renee? Were you asking for your request through Renee? Because if you were asking them through Renee, staff wouldn't be complaining about it. So I guess that's the question.
I absolutely do. So, but if we're talking about a single commissioner who might have made a request outside of the chain of command, we are all new commissioners. And as I stated earlier, why are we not talking about this as a board, whether it's in a workshop or an executive session, to certainly educate us as commissioners to what we should be doing. I don't understand why we have pulled an ordinance from 6 years ago. This board functioned for the last 6 years without this ordinance. So when you're talking about streamlining and making things work better, I'm having a hard time understanding the need to add another layer of restrictions on commissioners beyond what the First Township Code dictates our authority is.
Yeah, I have
think
the same thoughts. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I have the same thoughts as Commissioner Kelly. I think there's 3 parts of this ordinance. I'll come back to the information part. You know, last time I said there's nothing here that I don't think we're doing right now, honestly. This says that commissioners cannot hire and fire staff. We know that. We don't do that. That's not an issue. This also says that commissioners cannot give staff direction or assign work. And if we want to do that, we go through the township manager and have a conversation about it. I think that's the way we're operating right now. I personally don't have a problem with that. The concern, which is what Commissioner Kelly is bringing up, the sentence starts here with, except for the purpose of inquiry. Now, I translate that into, it says, except for the purpose of inquiry, the board can, contact staff to get information, or contact the township manager and staff to get information. Is that what's intended? And the reason I say that, we oftentimes have a situation, not just in the township, but in general, we have a situation where something is written and it's literally written one way, and then it is interpreted a different way. There were some comments made in explaining this ordinance last time that I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it was like the board would have to meet and vote before we asked the township manager and staff for information. Now that's what was said. That's not what this ordinance says, but that's what was said at the last meeting. I surely hope that by enacting this ordinance, that's not what we intend to do.
So, Commissioner Walk, the intention, in my view, the way I see it, is more to put all of us in the loop of what and work together and understand what the issues of each commissioner is, rather than each one individually go ahead and talk to the staff and ask them all kinds of questions without the others knowing about it. I think we should.
To that point, Commissioner Sutton, to do our jobs, there are times that we may need to call someone in community development to get clarification. For example, on the height adjustments that were brought tonight, there may be a time that I need to talk to Steve Carr, who's our Director of Finance, because I'm preparing for a finance meeting. There are certainly times that I call the township manager, but I will reiterate any requests I've made for information, I made through the township manager and copied all of the Board of Commissioners. That has been, so everyone is able to see what I've requested and what's being given back. I don't know if other commissioners are doing that, because I really don't see a whole lot of emails coming through or other communications. So I have been transparent in my requests. These are public documents we're talking about. I know for a fact that a townships such as Bethlehem Township, if you go on their website as a private citizen and look at their agenda, you will see every invoice that they are paying. The public can see it. I am a commissioner, and they are not included in my packet. I think we all need to ask ourselves the question, in an era when transparency is important, why this ordinance seems to be making it difficult to get information.
This
Yeah,
ordinance
like
has nothing to do with you getting invoices, Diane. And just for the record, it was only one commissioner who had requested those invoices. And anytime you've ever asked for those invoices, you're always given them. So this ordinance has nothing to do specifically with seeing invoices. So I don't really get why you're drawing so much attention to that. Nobody's trying to keep something from you or anything like that. So it's about structure.
May I comment?
Go ahead.
I actually did. I have been asking for these invoices. In January, I called the township manager. I just thought it was easier. And then I realized I didn't want to take up so much of her time. I started emailing the request. And last month, I did get an email back explaining the process, telling me what steps went through before they were approved, which I appreciate. We have a very, very thorough internal process. But I still, as a commissioner, if I'm going to approve, for example, tonight, $700,000-$800,000 in invoices, I don't know why they're not included in our packets. I believe this full board should see them, and I still do not understand why we're adding an extra layer of an ordinance that was removed in 2014. And specifically, Commissioner Morgan, you voted to remove this ordinance back then after much research done by our solicitor and our staff. You must have had a good reason to remove it. I'm having a hard time understanding why we're adding this back on. If you could please help me understand what the point was to remove it in 2014 then.
I'd like to, we're starting another subject now.
Excuse me, I would like Commissioner Morgan to help me understand, because I know that you were the only one on the board in 2014.
Diane, I would love to share with you exactly what that reason is, but to be perfectly honest with you, I couldn't even, I don't even remember. I don't remember exactly what the reason is. I don't.
I have information why it was
functioned
removed.
for 6 years without it, and you don't remember why you voted to take it away. So what good reason would there be to add it back in today? We are all.
So let me tell you the reason.
Mr. Walk needs to talk because he knows the reason apparently. Go ahead.
I have some information. So I'm going to go up a level here, okay? Because we're talking about information flow and this sort of thing, and that's vitally important to the commissioners so we can do our jobs. All right. But I'd like to spend a minute just to talk about the government structure and the organization, mainly between the township and the BOC and the township manager roles and responsibilities. And I just want to say at the onset here, I'm not talking about individuals. I'm just talking about our government, its structure, and how we're set up. This might be informative to the people on the conference. This is pretty basic, right? But I think this is what's involved here with implementing this ordinance, repealing it, and reinstating it. This is a balance of authority issue between the BOC and the township manager. So here's our government structure. The Board of Commissioners is elected by the people. The Board of Commissioners has accountability and authority to govern the township. The Board of Commissioners appoints the township manager. The Board of Commissioners provides direction to the township manager, and the township manager serves at the pleasure of the Board of Commissioners. The township manager has a responsibility for the administration, and the township manager responsibilities are defined in the code and the employment agreement, even without this ordinance. It's already defined. So let me summarize that front end. The Board of Commissioners is elected by the people. The Board of Commissioners governs the township. We appoint and direct the township manager. It's not the other way around. Okay? Now, the reason I said that is to lay the foundation for what follows, which is the history. This ordinance was in place up through 2014. this ordinance called Restrictions on Commissioners, which was in place, was repealed in 2014. The balance of authority between the Board of Commissioners and the Township Manager precluded good government. At the time, it was seen, not just with one Township Manager, but maybe a series of Township Managers, that we had gotten to the point where the Township Manager had too much power. And in 2014, this is now specific reasons. This is communication between the Board of Commissioners regarding the repeal of this ordinance. I'll read a couple quotes. One, the language that is in section 1.78, which is this ordinance, is a quote unquote Township Manager administration language that we need to steer away from for reasons that specifically relate to putting too much power in the hands of the Township Manager, unquote. Right? And the other quote, there was a positive view among the commissioners about the repeal of this ordinance for that specific reason. And it was celebrated, honestly, because this quote is, to really hit the home run I think we want to hit, we will need to amend the ordinance, section 1.78, to eliminate it altogether. In 2014, the BOC had lost their ability to govern the township properly. I don't believe we should reinstate this ordinance called Restrictions on Commissioners. We cannot afford to return to that government that we had in place in 2014 for those reasons. And now, if you come around to the financial issue, which Commissioner Kelly has addressed, I believe it's critical that the Board of Commissioners must stand for open government and financial responsibility, and we need financial information to do our job. And we need it from the Township Manager and the staff. So I'm saying this at a high level. We talked about the details of invoices. I'm saying this at a high level. And I also believe that when we ask for information, whether it's part of committee work or whether it's at the BOC meeting, this financial information should also be shared with the public. The proposed ordinance can deter through no malintent whatsoever. It can deter the transparent sharing of financial information, and it can enable financial malfeasance like the 2011 embezzlement that occurred at that time. Apparently, nobody knew what was going on. So I don't think, in large overview, for all of these reasons, I don't think this ordinance should be reinstated, because we have a good balance of power now, I believe we do, between the BOC and the Township Manager. And I don't think that the balance of our authority should be shifted at this point in time one way or the other. And as far as problems associated with people's workload and the desire to obtain information, I think those are solved through discussion, face-to-face discussion with good teamwork that don't require this ordinance.
Well, just to jump in there, because I've been silent so far, and part of that's because I proposed this ordinance and I wanted to let everyone else, have their opportunity to talk about it. Two issues I see, and one of them I think it was actually brought up. I don't know if it was the last meeting or 2 meetings ago. I think it was with the Covered Bridge Park project. And Mike, you had a conversation with, I think it was George, or it might have been Steve, I forget, about how, you mentioned Steve or George, we had an agreement that there would be no more discretionary spending. And they were like, we never had an agreement like that. I certainly myself was never a member of that, participant in that conversation. So that right there is an example of, people thinking that they have an agreement with individual department heads that everyone else is then subject to when there's disagreement that was ever had. So that's one. Another issue that was brought up. Wait, Mike, Mike, no, please, can I just finish my point? I didn't interrupt. My second point is that my understanding is that at a recent finance committee meeting, at the outset of that committee meeting, you and Diane both brought up, without prompting, the potential need to cut staff to deal with COVID issue or whatever. And that was a concern to the department head that I spoke to, that, you know, these are decisions that are not to be made by two commissioners at a committee meeting, that this is something that, first of all, is not even in our ability to do, is just to decide to fire people for perceived economic issues. So this ordinance would allow us to all be on the same page, so that we know that information is not being disseminated by one department head to one commissioner that no one else is aware of, or that one commissioner is making requests of a department head that no one is aware of. Because certainly, if we're going to talk about staff and budgets and whether we can afford to keep, you know, Jane Doe or John Doe, you know, that is something that should not be dealt with behind the scenes. We want to talk about transparency. You know, those are types of things that should be dealt with during a public meeting, and then directed to the commissioner or the township manager. If we wanted to all agree, hey, as a majority of the board, we want to tell Renee, please look into whether we need to cut staff to save money. That's the way that should be handled, not two finance committee members behind the scenes saying, well, we might need to start, you know, looking at determinations. So this, in my opinion, ordinance would address some of those types of concerns.
Okay, those are
Commissioner
good
Magoo, I
examples.
just wanted to
I'm
add
glad
one
you brought them up,
comment.
actually. Go ahead, Diane.
I just had a brief comment. First of all, I just want to specify or delineate the difference between a subcommittee and a board. As a subcommittee in finance, we do talk about an awful lot of very detailed budget information, and certainly whether or not the township was going to have some kind of financial hardship where we would have to potentially consider what we're going to do with employees. That was a question, as was everything else. What are we going to do about parks, and what are we going to do about, you know, every budget item that we have? We certainly would never make a discussion or decision in that meeting, and our township manager is part of that finance committee and was involved in that conversation. And if it was improper for us to ask that question, it was not said to us in the meeting, and I certainly would have appreciated being told in that committee meeting that what you're asking for isn't appropriate. I'm a new finance committee member, and I'm looking to our township manager and department heads for guidance as well. And I will say, if you're then saying that committees can't talk and have information, then what do we do about our fire subcommittee? Are we going to do those in conjunction with the Board of Commission meetings now, and our interview committee? Are those going to happen with all commissioners? The reason we have these subcommittees is that we go and we delve into these matters deeper and report back to the full board. So I want to make it clear that Commissioner Walk and I, who were appointed to finance with the approval of this full board, we're not going outside of our appointed duties. We were asking questions of our township manager and department heads to gain understanding and face the impact of COVID. And this is uncharted water for all of us, and overwhelming for us as commissioners to think about dealing with this. But difficult questions had to be asked so that we knew what we were dealing with overall, just to fill you in.
Yep.
Thank you for indulging me.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with Diane. First of all, I want to say,
All right.
I truly appreciate Commissioner Mobilia raising these examples. They're good to illustrate. And I agree with Commissioner Kelly's comments. You know, the committee work, it's a special case, right? Because we have two commissioners assigned to work with Township Manager Bickle and staff. It's a very, very unique and special occasion because the township manager is right there. We're not talking directly to staff without her being present. All right, so, but we have to get our work done. We were assigned in the finance committee to understand the impact due to the pandemic. We needed to know what's the revenue shortfall, what's the cost increases, and where can we possibly reduce costs in order to, you know, to balance the budget. That was the work. I believe the BOC knew we were accomplishing that work, and that's we had several meetings in order to do that. All right, so there's a special circumstance with the committees. But on your specific point, I want to be very clear about this. You said it carefully. I just want to make sure everybody understands it correctly. I did ask a question about if we need, hypothetically, if we need to cut costs, what might the cost reduction be if we found we had to furlough an employee?
Mike,
okay?
Mike, this is not,
that-
we're way off target. Can we please bring it back? That is not specific to this ordinance and the reason for this ordinance.
Okay.
Can we bring it back
allow
to
me-
why we are doing this? Because this is dragging out into something that wasn't meant to address. I'm not really understanding
okay.
where you're going.
Here, I'll make one more
believe
statement.
you,
I'll make one more statement and then I'll finish. This was my concluding statement. I did not tell anyone we needed to reduce staff. I didn't ask anybody to reduce staff. I would never do that. I asked the question, what would the cost reduction be if we found out that we had to reduce staff? That's what occurred.
Very good.
Township Manager
Thank
Bickle
you.
present.
Thank you. Okay. So I think at this point, we've gotten everybody's comments on the board. Certainly, we need to open it up if there's any public comments or questions on this particular ordinance. So Steve, I'll let you sort through those if there's any comments or questions to feed back to us.
I'll be honest with you, it's hard to tell what's a actual comment on this and what's.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed
comments.
in the chat that I see going through, because it's ridiculous as far as being professional and trying to be respectful to the discussions at hand. So if there's anybody who'd like to comment or have a question on this particular topic, I know there's a billion other conversations going on at the same time. Would you please just let us know what your name and address is, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this particular ordinance prior to any motion.
Robert Hodges would like to speak. Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. Robert Hodges, 1707 Penn's Crossing. From what I'm understanding here, at least part of the reason for this ordinance is to take some weight off of the staff who are apparently getting inundated with emails from people and have it all go through the manager. But that seems like now if every single email, every single request is going to be going through the manager, that the manager is going to be overwhelmed and won't be able to handle all of that. And secondly, I just can't understand the concept that a Board of Commissioner member voted in by the public can't speak to one of the town officials. That's just incomprehensible to me. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. To answer your question, and anybody else can chime in on this as well, the intention isn't to, overload the township manager either. It is more to control the flow of information, to make sure that it's going through a central person and disseminated the same across all of the board members and staff. And that's primarily what it is. So when a request would come in for information, say, whether it be financial, whether it be a community development question, anything like that, Renee would certainly disseminate that to the proper department head, and then, it would be further disseminated to the full board for information, so that everybody has the same information and it's clear and concise. It would be a chain of command and a flow of information. So the intent isn't to overload the township manager either.
To add
follow up?
Can I just
follow up?
Rob, can I just respond to what you had already asked, just to join? Of course, you guys will follow up. I just wanted to answer your question.
Sure.
Part of it is that you're right. The township manager is going to get more information directly to her, but then that's going to allow her to prioritize what stuff actually gets full attention immediately versus put down the list of the priority list, basically. So in other words, for instance, Mike brought up asking finance to look into what would happen if we had a shortfall? Who would we have to furlough? Why, when, how? Well, we're not there. So the point is, if that request came into the township manager, Renee would say, okay, well, we're not in a position where we need to cut expenses. So if and when we get to that point, we'll look into that, but we need to address the immediate things first. So that's kind of the idea. But when you're an administrative person or you're an administrative head and you have a commissioner come to you and say, I need answers to these questions, that comes across as it needs to be done now because the commissioner has asked for it. So this is the purpose of this in part is to have one person in charge of prioritizing so that those things that don't need immediate attention give way to the things that do need immediate attention.
May I follow up?
Of course.
First, thank you for your answer. That sounds to me like any board commissioner needs to get permission from the others to ask a question. And that's, I don't understand that. Secondly, it sounds like you're saying the manager is the one who decides what is important and what is not, instead of the commissioners. And that also doesn't make any sense to me.
No, the intention isn't that any board member can ask a question to the township manager. It's just the information that's gathered. So let's just say, there is a specific question asked. It's important that the rest of the board is briefed on that information. So it's a dissemination of information. So if there's a specific question asked and information requested, then what would happen is the township manager would provide that information not just to the board member who requested it, but to the rest of the board, so that everybody is in the loop and has the same information and is on the same page. And that's what's meant to happen. It's not meant that, like, if I had a question, I'd have to make sure before I asked my question that every other board member was okay with me asking the question, nor would it be the same for any other board member. It's the intention is that as the information is being developed, that information is being shared and disseminated and discussed on a level that all of the Board of Commissioners is on the same page.
I'd like to respond, Commissioner Morgan, just as a practical question. So again, I can only refer to this because I'm on Finance Committee. So for example, on Fire Subcommittee, I believe it's you and Commissioner Seton. So if you need information, you're going to email through Renee and copy all commissioners, because that's not happening. And I can tell you, my requests have been made through the township manager, copying all commissioners for clear transparency for all. And I will reiterate, when I'm in a finance meeting, and if I've asked a question that requires extra time or is somehow inappropriate, I would please ask publicly that our township manager and or any department head who is going to have difficulty providing information to me would have a conversation with me, and we can come to an agreement and work together, because that's what I'm here for, to work with our township manager and our department heads. And I fail to see how adding a layer of restrictions to commissioners is going to help our processes as commissioners. I will go back to my initial point. If there was an issue with a staff member who went specifically to Commissioner Mobilio, and then this ordinance was brought about, why was that not sent to all of us so we were all aware and on the same page as you just spoke about, Commissioner Morgan?
Diane Kelly has said that now for the second.
I'm curious why this issue didn't go to the full board for us to be aware. I was unaware that this ordinance was advertised or being worked on. I knew that you proposed that at the last meeting, Commissioner Mobilio. I was unaware that it made the newspaper. I must have missed it. I do try to look at legal notices. I was not emailed a copy of this in advance. So if we're talking about clarity and openness between commissioners, I certainly have not been in the loop on this particular issue.
Well, Diane, didn't I sent you a copy of this ordinance the date that we proposed it to advertise it?
Correct, but I didn't know if that would be the actual ordinance word for word or not, or what was going to be advertised. But here we are. Is there an issue with a staff member, and why as a full board aren't we aware of it? So there hasn't been open communication with the full board.
Well, Diane, to be fair, at that meeting, in fact, exactly what I said to Attorney Zader was, I would ask that you draft an ordinance that mirrors this ordinance word for word, completely. So, I mean, I agree with you that I assumed it was advertised because that's why it was on the agenda, but, you know, it was the exact same ordinance that you had a copy of back in, I guess that was second week of May or first week of May, I mean.
May 6th, I believe. Right. But if Commissioner Morgan's asking that we need all of us to be on the same page and in the loop, I was not aware that there was an issue with requests that I or maybe Commissioner Wolk was making of financial information. I didn't realize it was a burden to the staff, and I don't know why we were not in the loop. If that's the goal of this ordinance, I've been on this board 5 months. I haven't been in the loop of a lot of things. So.
Yeah, it's a little ironic, honestly. I'm not being facetious, but honestly, it's a little ironic that a couple of the issues noted as examples occurred in the Finance Committee meeting, and Commissioner Kelly and I were sitting there with the township manager and the financial manager having this open discussion, very positive, very productive, putting different ideas out there about the revenue stream and on the cost reduction side, and we're brainstorming in a way, right? And then something comes up and it amounts to a question like, well, what would the benefit be from a furlough? If Stephen Carr or Renee Bickle had said in the meeting, hold on now, you're getting ahead of yourself, or hey, that doesn't fit our workload plan. Let's tackle this first and not, you know, set that aside just for a minute. We would have said, okay, we don't need an ordinance.
I agree 100%. I try to be very gracious with our administrative staff. I appreciate what they do. And if I have somehow burdened somebody, I'm going to go on the record as saying, please talk to me. I would be very happy to work with any staff member if I've overwhelmed someone. Unfortunately, I wasn't told. So I'm feeling out of the loop here, Commissioner Morgan.
Okay, can we go back to the public for any questions or comments that they might have?
David Burke would like to speak. David.
Mr. Burke.
Yes, thank you. President Morgan, you said that you did not remember why the ordinance was shelved some 6 years ago. There were at least 10 people on the chat who requested that same question, why was it shelved? Mike Wolk gave a rather complete explanation of what he thought the reason was that the ordinance was shelved. I guess my question is, because people have asked this question, do you agree with what Mike said? And did that refresh your memory? You voted to shelve the 6 years ago?
I'm not going to make a comment on that until I go back through my notes because I honestly, I would be shooting from the hip, and I'm not going to comment on what the decision and why the decision was made in 2014, if that was the year it was done. I would have to go back and look.
Okay, you have notes from 6 years ago. That's great. Okay.
I don't know if I have notes from 6 years ago. I do not. I can't. I would have to rethink that one. So I don't have an answer for you. And no, I'm not going to agree with Mr. Wolk until I go through my own history first.
Okay, that's fine. Again, I just wanted to bring that forward because there were at least 10 requests. Same question. Why was it shelved?
We can certainly look back at the meeting minutes and get a better understanding of why that was done. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I just have one more comment, Commissioner Morgan, just as a point of clarity for everyone on the call. In Appendix A of our township manager's employment agreement with the township, and I will quote, it says the township manager authority shall come from the Board of Commission as a whole, manage day-to-day operations, serve as the central point of contact among the Board of Commissioners, staff, and committees, provide for continuity of operations through changes in board membership. And that's what we're working through, changes in board membership. And I guess I just need to ask at this point, do we need an ordinance to tell our township manager to share a question with the full board? I just don't understand how we just can't today, since we direct the township manager, as we've been educated in our workshops as new commissioners, we must ask for all of our requests through her, and that is what has been done. And that's my final comment on this topic. It has gone on way too long.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Were there any other questions or comments from the public? Steve, are you seeing any other things? All right, Joe, I'll look to you then to
I do not see any.
No other
Attorney
comments.
Zader.
For no other comments, then, because it's not a public hearing, there's no need to close it. It would be an option for the board to proceed with a vote if that's the pleasure of the board.
All right. With that being said, we do have an ordinance for consideration tonight, amending the Township Manager Codified Ordinance. Do I hear said motion to move forward with this ordinance modification this evening?
So moved.
What happened to the audio?
Oh.
Hold on,
What's
Tori, we
happening
can't
with the
hear you.
audio? I can't hear anyone. Steve?
I am hearing you, Diane. Can anybody hear me?
Steve, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So we had a motion by Commissioner Mobilio. I made a second, and we're looking for a roll call vote.
Walk,
No.
Commissioner Kelly,
I'm going to vote no, and I do want to make a comment, Commissioner Morgan. It's unfortunate that we're going forward with this when you stated you didn't remember why you voted to remove it 6 years ago. It would be my opinion that we should table this until we all have full information to understand why this was removed 6 years ago. I do vote no. I don't think this will be helpful for the township in general or for the commissioners.
Commissioner Seton, Commissioner Seton,
Still there?
Commissioner Seton, are you there?
I don't even see him.
Hold on.
Hold on. Commissioner Seton, he's there. I see him. No, we can't hear you. He's muted.
Commissioner Seton?
Yeah, he's giving us a thumbs up right now.
Okay.
Can
Type it in the chat.
Joe Zader, yeah,
Type
can
it
we
in the chat.
take it in the chat?
Type it in the chat.
Everyone?
I heard two people talking at once. I couldn't understand, Steve.
Joe, is a vote, if he votes to everybody in the chat, can we accept that or no? Do you know?
He said yes in the chat.
He did say yes.
Yep, to
That's
everyone.
acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Mobilio,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan.
Aye. Motion carries. And I'm happy to, we will pull out the meeting minutes from 2014 and try and get any of those questions answered that might be still lingering out there. All right, moving along, this evening we have a resolution for consideration this evening granting final approval to a major plan entitled Parkland Manor Phase 4 Senior Living. George.
Yes, thank you, commissioners. So this is if you recall, you actually approved the preliminary plan for this late last year. This is the request for final plan approval. The plan proposes to construct an 80-unit, 4-story senior living facility and associated parking. Just very quickly on some of the relevant hearing dates. It was back in 2016 that the zoning hearing board actually granted a special exception to this project for approval to utilize the former racquetball club as a retirement facility. In February of 2017, the Board of Commissioners approved Resolution 2017-16, granting the land development waiver and permitting the redevelopment of that West End racquetball club as a retirement facility. In July of last year, the Planning Commission considered and recommended granting another waiver for several minor site improvements, with the understanding that the waiver approval would lead to a land development submission as it is presented to you this evening. On August 21 of 2019, the Board of Commissioners approved Resolution 2019-41, granting that same land development waiver. It went back to the Planning Commission then formally as a land development back in October of last year. And the Planning Commission at that time did recommend the current preliminary plan, subject to 14 conditions. The Board of Commissioners then followed that up in December of last year with Resolution 2019-66, granting that preliminary plan approval to the project and pursuant to the Planning Commission recommendation. So that brings us to the final plan, which was last heard by the Planning Commission in April of this year. And the Planning Commission did unanimously recommend final land development approval subject to 16 conditions and 2 waivers. Those 2 waivers are request to waive the requirements to show certain off-site utility features and a request to waive requirements to show off-site trail easement and right-of-way features. In both instances, the commission recommended approval, citing the level of information on the plan was deemed acceptable. And, you know, I'll give way to Tony in a minute, but I believe most of any engineering considerations have been mitigated, and this plan is pretty much ready to go. Just very quickly on any possible discussion items. This one's been very straightforward. There's been minimal public input and discussion at the Planning Commission meetings. I think Bill's probably in the audience and will be the presenter for this case, but one thing that we discussed with them a couple of weeks ago was that, if you'll recall, when they came with the preliminary plan, they showed some elevations for that building, and it basically had a front for both Crackers Court and a front interior to the lot. So we asked them to hopefully commit to that design because it was relatively attractive and again provides a nice space to Crackers Court Road. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions or turn it over to the applicant for a further presentation.
All right, thank you, George.
Sure.
So I think Priya's on the line. Is there would you like to add anything? Is there anything else from the applicant?
I know we have Bill and Sue on the line. We're here for any questions that you guys may have. We're available, and yeah, we're open.
Yeah, I agree. I'm here also, Bill. And Blake is also online.
Great, great. Hi, everybody. Are there any questions or comments from the board for George or Bill, Blake, or Priya? Are there any questions or comments from the public?
I do not see
Steve, are
anything.
you seeing? Okay,
yeah, I do not
great.
see any comments on this.
All right. That being said, we do have a resolution for consideration granting final approval to the major plan entitled Parkland Manor Phase 4 Senior Living. Do I hear said motion?
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Kelly. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
I couldn't tell who that was.
Give it to Mike.
Commissioner Walk. Roll call vote, please, Renee.
Commissioner Walk,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
did want to note, I do serve on the Planning Commission, and I want to thank Priya and your family and staff and everybody who's done such a really a fantastic job to make that site just a really beautiful jewel for South Whitehall. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Sutton. Whoops.
You might have to type it in.
Joe, yeah.
Unbelievable. Goddamn.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Okay. Commissioner Mobilia.
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan.
Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, Priya and team. Look forward to great things.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you,
No
Commissioners.
problem. Have a great evening. All
You
right.
too.
We have no motions for consideration this evening. We do have one item under correspondence and information items. It's a public notice. It's a joint Board of Commissioner and Planning Commission meeting, which will be held on Wednesday, June 10th at 6 p.m. to discuss the comprehensive plan summary of Phase 2 with an intro into Phase 3. And details for this go-to meeting will be on our website. George, would you like to give any more details on this particular topic?
Not a lot to add, Commissioners. We're excited to be able to present to you some of our findings from Phase 2 and introduce you to what we hope will transpire as part of Phase 3. We will have 2 speakers as part of that workshop. That includes a transportation analyst who will talk a little bit about how he'll look at some baseline studies for traffic impacts as we work through the balance of the plan. And we also have our, if you recall, our economist, Todd Poole. We'll have him back from Forward Planning to talk a little bit about the economy. This will be really interesting, actually. He's going to talk a little bit about the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and what that might look like in the future. So it should be a really interesting conversation. And he suggested to us that our timing on our comp plan was really good because of this, because a lot of people that may have adopted their plans prior to this pandemic might be a little bit out of sorts on the economic side. So I think it'll be an entertaining conversation, and we look forward to having as many people attend as possible.
Great. Thank you, George. Any questions or comments for George from the board? All right. Any from the public?
Can I be heard?
You can be
Can I
heard.
be heard?
Is this Joe?
Oh,
Yes. Yes.
okay. All right.
Any comments or questions?
What is it in regards to discussion?
This would have been for the up. I know you're having some problems with your computer. That's no problem, Joe. It would be for the joint meeting with the Board of Commissioners and the Planning Board coming up to talk about the next phase of the comprehensive plan. Just George was giving a review on that whole process.
No questions.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Thank you, George. Look forward to seeing information on that. I assume that'll all be on the website and publicized so everybody has access to it.
Absolutely. We should have an agenda soon, and we are updating our blog daily at this point. So follow that if you have access to it. If not, you can get access to it by going to our website.
All right. Okay. Thank you, George. So the next item on our agenda under direction and discussion items, we have a discussion this evening regarding the possibility of outdoor dining options in South Whitehall. And I will hand this discussion over to Commissioner Stetton and also George Kinney from the Community Development Department. So George?
Well, I'll defer to Commissioner Stetton first and then follow up with the
Thank you,
information.
George. Thank you, George. I appreciate it. So clearly, you know, we're all in difficult times, and the restaurant business has been one of the biggest business that is having a hard time. So I shared an idea that I had with staff and that would give an opportunity to all of the South Whitehall Township restaurants the ability to potentially get some more revenues by moving some of their tables onto the parking lots, and if property owners would permit them to do the same in shopping strips, etc. There were some details that Renee and George worked on, and I appreciate everything they've done, and I'll give the George go ahead from here.
Thank you, Commissioner Sutton. So I don't know if you want me to go through, we put this together, as Commissioner Sutton said, well, actually Renee came down and talked to me a little bit about it and said, what can we put together to help some outdoor dining establishments as we're working, particularly through like the yellow and green phases of the reopening plan for the Commonwealth. So we went back and looked at some ordinances, some that I had familiar with from just past places that I worked, and we also looked at maybe what other townships are doing with respect to this idea. And so we put together, I think Steve has it up on the screen, a series of bullets. The idea was not to be overburdensome at all. And in fact, this particular set of criteria wouldn't even really require a permit other than a simple sketch plan submission, which would act as the permit. But I'll bounce through them really quick, just so everybody understands what they are. But basically, what we're suggesting is that any restaurant establishment or retail food service business located in the township could operate an outdoor dining area pursuant to several guidelines. One, that the dining is permitted on public or private property as an accessory use to the restaurant. Two, if a restaurant or retail food service business is not a property owner, then it must obtain written permission from the property owner, obviously. Three, the hours for the outdoor dining operation would be the same as the restaurant hours of operation. Four, the location of furniture, fixtures, facilities associated with the outdoor dining area would be set up such that there would be a continuous 4-foot pedestrian access route maintained. Five, the location of the outdoor dining area would not impede any vehicle travel way. Six, the outdoor dining area at owner expense should be kept neat and clean. Seven, the outdoor dining area may extend beyond their property boundaries with written permission from the adjacent property owner. Next bullet, only tables, chairs, umbrellas, landscaping, refuse containers, approved heaters, fans, and pedestrian amenities would be permitted in that area. Refuse containers would be provided within that area. And outdoor advertising would be basically limited to menus or sandwich boards. There's also a reference to the governor's reopening plan. That's the last bullet. And basically what it says is, and it's really a should, not a shall, just while in the yellow and green phases of the COVID-19 reopening plan, the restaurant or retail food service business would observe governor mandates as relevant to those particular phases. And those are available on the governor's website. So there's four then simple submission requirements. We would suggest that a building permit or zoning review would not be required for any outdoor dining area for the duration of this policy. Here's the sketch plan aspect I was talking about. A sketch plan should be submitted to the township for review prior to establishing an outdoor dining area. The sketch plan would include the owner permissions and clearly indicate the location of the dining area and any amenities proposed, including furniture and advertising. There would be no fee for that submission. We would obviously expedite the review as quickly as possible. We could probably get those out the door in a day or two at the most. But there would be no fee for the submission. But the sketch plan would act as the permit, which would need to be maintained on site. And the reason we say that is because we would want to make sure that the fire marshal or Chris's group would be able to, stop in every once in a while and just make sure that the condition, that everything's safe, basically. So that's it in a nutshell. We threw an opening and closing date, basically would be effective upon adoption if the board chose to follow through with this adoption. And then we chose November 30 as an ending date only because that's winter and I don't know if people will be sitting out after that date. This is all obviously a draft and can be discussed at the commissioner's leisure. So with that, I'll just kind of let you all discuss it and then see what I'll take your direction.
Thanks, George. Thanks for that. And it sounds like a very exciting idea, certainly a way to help bolster our local businesses. So are there any questions or thoughts or comments on this concept with the board before we go to some of the public questions?
Yes, Commissioner Morgan, I do have a question for George. What timeline are you looking at once a sketch is submitted?
Yeah, we would expedite that as quickly as possible. So I would commit to a day or two. We could probably turn something around. My guess is we would have a push up front. So we would have to work a little hard on the front end, and then it would kind of just trickle in after that. But
and as a follow-up, since we're requiring a sketch plan, is that some sort of a template that we're going to provide, or is just any sort of a sketch acceptable to the township?
Yeah, my initial thought, Diane, was just whatever they would want to come in with. Hopefully it wouldn't be a back of the napkin sketch, but something on, if it's on grid paper or something like that. We just need a general idea of where that area is going to be, and then what kind of furniture and fixtures would be included in that design.
Excellent. Yeah, I've noticed some of the businesses here in our township have really done a good job of being creative and doing curbside and having music outside, and it's just really nice to see them working. I actually reached out to one of our local restaurants today, and they had some questions about how this is going to work, and explained the processes that they're working with as far as having prepackaged cutlery and disposable dinnerware to have outside. And so I just wanted to get a contact person for them because they wanted to contact the township as soon as possible if this is adopted. So thank you for your work on this. We did, Commissioner Wilk and I spoke about this with the Finance Committee last week. So they were very helpful in helping us talk through that. We did have questions in our finance meeting about how are we helping our businesses and restaurants in the township when they can open up again. So I appreciate your work on this. And one final comment that I just need to say, when we just talked about an ordinance about everyone being on the same page and being in the loop. The full board was not made aware of this draft. I only received it today, and I certainly would have liked to have given my input in advance. I was speaking to restaurants and trying to see how we can help them, because it's important.
Diane,
during
this is the first any of us. This is the first any of us have seen this. I didn't see it before today either, and this was all discussed in a group. So this isn't something other people have seen and you haven't. So.
Well, I just, Commissioner Seton said that he shared this with staff and got this going. So in the future, it might be nice to have the full board, because
Commissioner Kelly.
May I finish? May I finish?
Sure.
I was just going to say, just to be able to work collaboratively, we may all have things to add in there from our different perspectives and the people that we talk to, so that we're not reinventing the wheel, to come up with an ordinance or guidelines that the full committee has had a chance to speak about. That's the only point that I was trying to make.
Okay, so the only thing I can say is today is also the first day I see all of what George did. All I did is I shared an idea with staff, and they developed it into something beautiful. And I truly believe that this is something that is going to help all the restaurants. I also very much hope that the strip malls owners would cooperate with the restaurants, and potentially I can vision the through strip, that is the through road, the traffic road, the through traffic that goes along the building might be somewhat blocked, and some tables are out there. I see it as something very beautiful. I hope it works and helps the restaurants. That's the whole idea.
I certainly agree with you, and I do thank George and team for bringing this together, because I know Friday we open up into the yellow, and I know the businesses that I talked to are very excited about being able to serve the public again in a dining experience. So
Thank you, Dan.
Is there any other questions? Or go ahead.
Yeah, just one quick question. Has our police department been involved in, the write-up, or will they be involved in any specific occasion, restaurant?
It has been shared with them. I haven't gotten any formal comment back from them, but it has been shared with them. I didn't know if I didn't anticipate and actually I was going to ask Joe probably, what's the best way to do this if we want to do this? Is this a policy? Is it a resolution? I'm not sure. So this was really just to kind of introduce it. It's a draft, but yes, Commissioner Dorney has it. I think Chris also probably has a copy at this point, although I didn't directly email him one, but I think he probably got one through Glenn or Renee. But they've seen it, but I haven't gotten any comment back yet to answer your question, Mr. Wall.
George,
I think that the main idea is to help them and to make it easy and simple. Clearly, there are restrictions, there are things we have to worry about, safety, legal, and all that good stuff. But the idea is to make it very, very simple and easy for them to move on and quickly, so they can benefit from it as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
George, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Clearly, these are not tremendously onerous requirements, but we already have some restaurants who are able to operate outdoors, assuming they meet the governor's orders requirements. But in terms of having zoning approvals or development approvals, they already have those. So would I be correct in assuming the intent is that for those restaurants that already can operate outside, they don't have to go through this process of presenting a sketch, et cetera, because they already have their permission?
Yeah, I would agree, Joe.
Well, Attorney Zader, the answer is yes, but those same restaurants might want to expand even further than what they have currently.
Sure.
Not too many restaurants have, so I think the answer is yes, but no, because they might want to put some more tables up.
In other words, the intent is to be permissive, to help restaurants to operate outdoors as opposed to placing new restrictions for them. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. That's the idea. There's no fee. The review will be quick. And it's actually that sketch plan, the way it's written here in draft form, that would stand as their permit. And of course, it's a temporary. So I wasn't quite sure how legislatively this is adopted, not adopted. It's because it's basically labeled temporary outdoor dining guideline policy.
So what, out of curiosity, we've only just started looking at all this and putting it all together, but how quickly would we be able to kind of, get this to a final stage and be able to put something in place so that the restaurants could actually benefit from it? Because every minute matters for them, quite honestly. I mean, every day that they're closed is a day that, it's harder for them to get back on their feet. So I guess I would just look to the board and to staff on the best way to get this thing moving. If we have to tweak it down the road, we'll tweak it down the road. But I think to the benefit of the restaurants, we don't want to drag it out forever in conversations. It's not doing them any good if we do that. So that would be my comment.
I agree with you, Commissioner. I agree with you, Commissioner Morgan. What I would suggest, I think Friday is when we move from red to yellow. And it would be wonderful, I know it's pushing it, if we can let those restaurant owners know that they can start on Friday.
I agree. I think the sooner the better, to get something out there for them to know that the minute they can, that they go into yellow, they can start doing this. I think it's huge. It's huge to our community. So.
Tori, I think that tonight, and Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you all just make a motion that you support the idea and we can finalize and tweak the final details of it, I think we can do that.
Well, I would certainly make that motion. I know we need to open up discussion to the public, but, you know, at this point, I would make a motion that we move forward on doing this as soon as possible, for sure.
Commissioner Morgan, may I ask a follow-up question before we go to the public?
Sure.
I just want to be clear to Solicitor Zader, have you not vetted through this document? Has this not been something that we've cleared with you yet?
I did receive it by email today, and I've been reading through it again as we've been talking about it here. And other than the question I've already asked of George, I have no issues or concerns.
Thank you for that. And I only had one follow-up to that. Then I'm just concerned for restaurants that do serve alcohol, how do we make sure the LCB rules are adhered to if we're going to be allowing dining outside of the actual walls of the building, and how do we address that in this document?
This is George.
I think the liquor.
Thanks so much for
control
Commissioner
board-
Zader. I was asking the solicitor.
I'm sorry. This is Joe.
It was a
Sutton,
legal
okay?
question, Commissioner Sutton. It was a
Oh.
legal question for how we address the LCB Liquor Control Board laws when we're talking about dining outside of the normal walls of a restaurant.
Any restaurant, any establishment that has a liquor license, as part of the approval for the PLCB license, they must present to the PLCB as part of the application, the area physically on the ground in the building that's going to be covered for service of alcoholic beverages. We cannot, as a township, alter that. So we don't have privy, we don't have information, I don't think, on what those physical locations are at the various restaurants. Maybe we do in some cases, but by and large, that's going to be an issue for the individual restaurants. Maybe a good idea, because I think it's an excellent question, Commissioner Kelly. I think maybe one of the things that could be communicated to the restaurant owners when this policy is passed out, and maybe even put it as an asterisk at the bottom, that the township is not in any way giving permission to go beyond the authority they have from the PLCB as it relates to the serving of alcoholic beverages.
Thank you for that. That was my question. If a restaurant doesn't currently have outdoor dining, I understand it. You know, they have to go through the state for that. If they don't currently have outdoor dining in their approvals and they're adding it now as a new thing to keep up with the opening under the yellow phase to have outdoor dining, that was my question. I'm sorry if I
They
wasn't
might be
clear.
able to open it up, they just can't serve alcohol.
And if I could just add, oops, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to add very quickly too that if you Google the governor's orders for yellow phase and green phase, he seems to directly deal with the liquor control issue. And he does specifically speak to bars and how they can operate in both the yellow and green phases. So there is some information available also on the governor's website as to how liquor and bars will operate under those two phases.
Thank you. So, Solicitor Zader, would you recommend that we put, add to this just to say that they must adhere to that, to the governor's order regarding?
I think that's a good idea. I think we cannot give permission. It can be granted only by the state. Whether that permission comes from the PLCB or pursuant to governor's orders, we cannot enhance that.
Diane, this is John Chai. I have a comment that may be helpful. Allentown started their program today. On their website, there is an interactive template, which is a 2-page fill it in, which is the thing that we were talking about in terms of the application. It is very concise in terms of what it says. And the LCB controls the sale of liquor outside the premises. It doesn't control the consumption of liquor outside the premises. So that if you don't have extension of premises beyond the walls of your building, you can't sell it outside, but the state is allowing people to go inside and buy it, which you're allowed to do under yellow, walk outside and outside seating and consume. So there is some there is some flexibility in the way it's being approached by the LCB. I know this because I'm a license holder. So go to the Allentown website. You save yourself a lot of time. They have a template. Call Mike Moore, who is Mayor O'Connell's publicist. He can give you all the information and probably save yourself an awful lot of time of running around circles. And you can probably have this ready to go tomorrow. Just change the indicia on the form and rock and roll with it.
Excellent. Thank you for that information.
One extra question on the liquor aspect. I didn't hear anybody say it. So what about BYOB? I mean, Lou's House, Thai Avenue, Bamboo.
That they will have to deal with their with the landowner, with the owner of the property. We cannot, obviously we cannot tell the owner of the property to put tables out on the sidewalks or on the street or on the parking lot, but we can give them the authority to do that if the owners work with them. That's what we need.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, Joe. There's that aspect since they're like in strip malls, but I was bringing up the BYOB aspect. Is BYOB permitted inside the premises? Would it be permitted outside or not?
I'm not sure what the Liquor Control Board permits, but I would suggest that outside liquor would be prohibited.
Okay.
Okay, so why don't we open things up a little bit to some questions or comments from the public on this before we move forward with the motion?
Tori, David Burke would like courtesy of the floor.
Sure, David.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Seton said I shared an idea with staff. And I just wanted to, because I don't really totally understand the ins and outs of the last motion that was passed, but with the, or the ordinance that was passed, but with that ordinance that was just approved, would he have the ability, or any of the other commissioners with a good idea, have the ability to talk to staff and start to develop that idea? That's the essence of my.
Mr. Burke, I believe, based on a discussion I had with Joe, that he brought the idea to Renee and then it was further disseminated. All of this information was shared with all of the commissioners in a discussion and then also in an email on May 29th. So it's followed the proper channels. This is not. I mean, I hate to take something that's a really good thing and we're ripping it apart. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No, again, I just wanted to make sure that we're not trying to restrict ourselves from doing good things. You've answered my question. Thank you.
You got it. You got it. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Commissioner Morgan, did you?
Or I mean, from the public. I apologize.
I'm sorry.
From the public.
I do not see anything else right now. If anyone else
All
does, please shoot another chat or.
Commissioner Morgan, I just wanted to follow up to your conversation with Mr. Burke. Did you just say this information, you had discussions with the full board?
No, this was brought to the full board's attention in an email. I know we all got the email, I believe it was May 29th, on this topic. Joe went to Renee with the idea, and then the idea was passed along to the full board.
So don't talk to me.
Well, I understand that, but again, I'm not trying to belabor a point, but we talked earlier at length about the full board being in the loop of things, and we were told that Joe brought this up and it was going to be on our agenda. that's what the email stated. So, I mean, in the future, this could be a good opportunity to share with the full board on the front end when an idea is pitched, and certainly we can all give our input so that, you know, we can have a good document moving forward, maybe not have so many questions here in the public forum once we're aware of what the topic is.
I think due to the timing of this particular issue, Diane, I mean, I think it made full sense to do what we're doing tonight. I mean, if we could have another lengthy discussion on it. We could go on for another 2 weeks until we meet again. That won't benefit the restaurants in any way, shape, or form. And as far as process went, Joe did everything he was supposed to do in going and talking with Renee, and Renee passed it on to George, who put together some information, sent it out to the full board, who all had a chance to look at it. We're discussing it tonight in hopes to get something in a good working order so we can benefit the restaurants in our community. And I think that's the bottom line.
I'm certainly supportive of our businesses. That's not my issue. I was talking about the process, but thank you for that.
You got it. All right. If there's no other questions or comments on this one, I did make a motion to move this along to the next steps to make sure it's something that's workable. And, you know, thank you to staff. Thank you to Joe for the ideas. And is there a second?
A second.
I'll second.
I'll give the, go ahead.
Commissioner Kelly,
Two of
second.
you.
Excuse me, are we still doing courtesy of the floor?
We asked for the last courtesy of the floor, but if you have a comment before we finish the vote,
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, absolutely,
Sure.
I did.
Sure.
I submitted that I did want to make a statement. I just want to read publicly
We're not at courtesy of the floor yet.
Oh, you're not there?
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I apologize. I thought you meant for the particular topic that we were on.
No,
I apologize.
no. Courtesy of the floor. Thank you.
No, we're not at courtesy of the floor yet. So,
Okay.
with that being said, we have Commissioner Stetton. Did you second, or was that Commissioner Kelly?
I'll second it.
All right. We have a second on the floor from Commissioner Stetton. Could I have a roll call vote, please, Renee?
Commissioner Walk,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Mobilio,
Aye.
Commissioner Stetton,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan.
Aye. Motion carries. Assuming, you know, staff and we'll go through the next steps, and Joe, from a legal standpoint, make sure that we have everything in order so that we can benefit our restaurants as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
All right. All right. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we have we do have some old business. We have Where's Dam and credit cards. Renee, do you have a status on either?
Where's Dam? I do know that DEP has not done the review of the permit yet. They apparently haven't been working some of this time during the pandemic, so that permit is still outstanding, so nothing new from the last time. And credit cards, I believe we have said are on target for June 30th. Is that correct, Steve Carr?
Yes, that's the date we're shooting for.
Great. Thank you, Renee. At this point in the meeting, we do have the opportunity for courtesy of the floor. This is the opportunity to discuss any non-agenda item. I am going to reiterate, I know there's been a lot of chat in the chat room on specific comments they would like to make, but I will repeat again that this courtesy of the floor, I want to make sure that everyone, that we do have rules and regulations and a conduct under the Sunshine Act, and we need to make sure that we follow those rules. We're going to limit it to 5 minutes per person, not allow comments that are scandalous, impertinent, redundant, or designed to disrupt the meeting, and no personal attacks. I know there's a lot of emotion and concerns and things that need to be addressed this evening, but we need to be civil and we need to have a good decorum during this meeting. And and we will not allow them to be argumentative in any way. If at any point during the conversation it's turning down that road, I will stop the discussion so that we can get back on track. So with that being said, I will open the floor for public comment. Steve, I'll allow you to kind of control.
Excuse me,
Yes,
Commissioner Morgan,
Diane.
will the board have an opportunity to speak first?
The board?
Yes, we didn't have a chance to
Sure.
comment after. Okay, I don't mean to cut in front of everyone that's been patiently waiting, but I did have a comment to make. Last fall, when I ran for office during my campaign, one of the things that I talked about to residents was that I wanted to be a voice of the people, and I was elected to serve our entire community, regardless of political party. It's our responsibility as a board, as your elected commissioners, to use our platform to encourage our community. I would like to share a message that I received from a resident. I do not know this individual. I have no connection to him whatsoever. This is no ploy. There's no behind the scenes. I received dozens of messages, but this one I believe was important for our community and board to hear. So if you'd indulge me for a moment, it's not very long. This individual messaged me, and I will quote it in its entirety. He stated, as a property owner in South Whitehall Township, will you be asking Matthew Mobilio if he will be hanging me for treason since I am a supporter of our president? I hope you understand that those of us with different views and opinions of Mr. Mobilio will always wonder if he will be treating us fairly and equally as those with ideas he supports. I have to say, the last day and a half, the comments and questions I've gotten have weighed very heavily on me as a commissioner. The community is looking to me to ask Commissioner Mobilio these questions, and I wanted to use this one just as an example of many for all to understand what our community is feeling. So I thank this resident for reaching out to me and to the dozens of others who have. We also, as a board, received multiple letters by email as well. And this is very difficult situation for all of us. So thank you for indulging me, and thank you to this individual for reaching out to me.
Yeah. President Morgan?
Yes.
I also would like to speak on behalf of the people of the township who have voiced their serious concerns about the recent politically divisive statement. This is my understanding of what they're all saying. If you pull it all together, people have to be able to trust their government, and the BOC can only govern effectively if it earns and maintains the citizens' trust. This is a matter of integrity. Each commissioner must behave and act with integrity to earn and maintain the people's trust. There is no integrity when a commissioner claims to represent all of the people and then states that half of the people with different political viewpoints are a disgrace and should be hung for treason. This most egregious lack of integrity has fractured the people's trust, and this commissioner can and will act in the best interest of the entire community. Now, we must move forward to heal from the wound which has been inflicted upon the township. We must now assess whether we have the ability to restore the people's trust. The question is, can we serve the entire community given the divisive statement made by one of our members? The BOC must consider all of the citizens' written statements and let the people express their serious concerns in person tonight. And then we as the BOC must decide what action we need to take so that we, as the leadership of the township, can serve the citizens with the highest level of integrity and trust. That is the people's expectation, and that is our obligation.
Thank you, Commissioner Wolf. Are there any other comments, thoughts?
Yes, I also have asked to speak.
All I ask is whoever's speaking, because it's hard for us to know who it is, if you just give your name and address, that would be great.
Susan Shortell, Parkland Drive. I just would like to read an email that I sent to the Board of Commissioners. It reads, I want to express my shock and disdain for the comments that a member of the South Whitehall Board of Commissioners posted on Facebook. While everyone has a right to their personal opinions, including on politics and current events, the views of others with differing opinions should be respected, and I quote, they are not a disgrace and should be hung for treason. It is especially upsetting that the individual who posts such offensive comments is a member of the 5-person South Whitehall Board of Commissioners. This issue should be addressed at tonight's meeting of the board, and the individual should be asked to resign in the interest of the future credibility of the Board of Commissioners. The citizens of South Whitehall Township deserve better than this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also wish to speak.
Lori, I do have
yeah,
a list of names we should probably run through that people have asked previously, and then
Oh,
if there's
okay.
other ones in addition to that, we
Yes.
can add on to that, just to give the
Excellent, thank
people
you.
that have asked previously.
Certainly, certainly. We
Jacob
just
Roth.
need your name and address. Great, thank you.
Yes, I am Jacob Roth of 1499 White Oak Road. I'm a longtime resident of this township over my short life, and I'm a graduating senior at Parkland High School. I sent a letter to Commissioner Mobilio earlier today, and I copied the other commissioners and the township manager on it, and I would like to read that letter into the record this evening. Commissioner Mobilio, I am writing to you with deep concern regarding a Facebook post in which you suggested supporters of the President of the United States should be, quote, hung for treason, close quote. Over the past week, our country has been shocked by the tragic death of George Floyd at the hands of 4 officers of the Minneapolis Police Department. As we have seen so many times before, this has led to divisive rhetoric from national leaders aimed at creating division, not unity. In an era when national leaders of both political parties fail to bring Americans together, citizens such as myself look to the local government to display values of unity and decency. You have failed to uphold these values. I respect your intent to participate in the national political debate, and I am not afraid to say that I, too, have sometimes found myself at odds with the rhetoric coming from the president and other elected officials at the federal level. But I will not tolerate you advocating for the death of 63 million Americans simply because they disagree with you. We must all learn to respect the opinions of others, regardless of who they voted for. On your campaign flyers from the most recent municipal election, you advertised yourself as an advocate for humanity. These comments undermine that message and erode my faith in you as an elected official. Although you have apologized for these comments, which I appreciate, it does not change the fact that they were said. In order to bring unity to South Whitehall, heal a broken community, and best serve the people you swore an oath to protect, it is the opinion of myself and dozens of other community members that you resign your position effective immediately. Now, I'd also like to add 2 things. 1, to the other commissioners. If you fail to speak out against what your fellow board members say, you essentially project to the people that the idea is true, that silence equals complacency. And lastly, to Mr. Mobilio, if you don't resign, you are placing your political aspirations over the humanity and the good of the people, and therefore it is logical to conclude that you are no better than the politicians you yourself criticize. I'm watching, young people are watching, our community is watching. Do the right thing, put the community over yourself and your political aspirations. And again, I repeat that I believe that you should resign your position effective immediately. Thank you, and I yield the floor.
Yes.
Tori Becky Wamsley. I'm sorry if I said that wrong, Becky. If you'd like to take courtesy of the floor.
That's okay. It's Becky Wamsley.
Sorry about that.
I am a longtime friend and supporter of Matthew Mobilio, and I just wanted to make a few comments in regards to the comment that he made on Facebook. You know, it's unfortunate in these days and times that we use each social media platform as a soundboard and a place to vent feelings when things are happening in the world that really upset us. And one thing that I do know about Mr. Mobilio is that his intention with this post was only to vent out a frustration at a country that he saw falling apart under a leader that he did not support. I have never felt unsafe around him. I have never felt threatened by him in any way or the manner. And we've actually had several heated discussions around politics ourselves. So I just wanted to come out and say that I understand completely why people are upset. But I wanted to make the point that, yes, he has apologized, and knowing him, he has apologized sincerely. And secondly, that, you know, he made an error and he made that apology. And so now, whether you're upset or not, we can take a look at that and realize that, you know, a lesser man may not even have come out and said that he apologizes for, you know, going off the cuff a little bit. So I say to the residents of South Whitehall Township, I understand your frustration, and you know, I'm here also and plan on listening to what everyone has to say. But I'm not asking anyone to forgive Mr. Mobilio. I'm just asking you to understand that the times that we are living in right now, yes, they can be polarizing and upsetting. And a lot of times the first place that we go to vent those frustrations is social media. And I believe that that is obviously an error in his part and something that he will be sure not to do again in the future. And thank you. That's all I have.
Next up, we have Mike Yellick. Mike here.
I can't hear you, Mike. Nope. Still not yet. Nope. I see your mouth. I can see your mouth, but I can't hear your words.
Hey, Mike, I'll call somebody else. I'll bring you back up, okay, bud? Bill McNair has, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I had some comments about the Planning Commission to make a letter to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission and the PennDOT regarding the Transportation Improvement Program. I'd like to submit comments to Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. There's some questions about that. I don't know that this is the time to deal with this right now. I can go through it if
certainly, it's courtesy of the floor. You have the opportunity to talk about any non-agenda items, by all means.
Okay. My suggestion is to send a letter to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission and PennDOT regarding the projects, the transportation projects that are in our township or near our township on the Transportation Improvement Plan Program, or TIP. There's about 8 of them that are listed, and there's a couple that have been dropped from previous plans. And what I would like to do is to note that what's there and what has been dropped, and suggest that we would like to work with the Planning Commission and PennDOT as these projects develop, that there are often small adjustments to these project scopes that can have a big effect on local communities. The reason I bring it up now is because it's due June 16. So there's not time for us to discuss at another meeting. I attended the TIP summary meeting that Lehigh Valley Planning Commission put on I think it was May 27th last week, and I reviewed the draft tip, and they're just brief comments. I feel that what this does is give us the opportunity to comment later, because we had comments now.
So, is George still on the line? I mean, I guess I'm not. I don't know the whole picture, so I don't know how to respond to this.
If it pleases the commission, I think what Bill's talking about is just wanting to make sure that PennDOT's aware that we want a voice in these projects as they unfold. We somewhat have that through the PennDOT Connects program now for projects that have not gone to an engineering stage yet, but I think this would, I think it's just from what I'm gathering from Bill, it's just something to alert them to the fact that we would be interested in maintaining a good relationship with them and participating as projects unfold, being a participant in that process.
That's correct.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense.
Sorry, Commissioner Morgan. I would add, because of the timing, maybe what we can do is I can get Bill's letter and forward it to Renee to forward to the commission, and then maybe at the meeting on the 10th next week, maybe that could be added to the agenda for discussion or consideration. But I leave that up to you all.
Bill, would that meet the timing concerns?
Yes, that would work fine.
Okay, I mean, I think that makes sense to give the staff and the full board the opportunity to look at everything and give you the timing that's needed to get things rolling.
Okay, good.
Is there any questions or comments from anybody else on that one?
Can anybody hear me?
Is that Mike?
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
We can hear
you.
Yeah, Mike, we can hear. Oh, yeah,
it's working.
Hold on,
I literally host a radio show, so I guess I have to speak into the microphone like I'm actually doing the show.
Mike, one second. We have another. Hold on one second.
Okay. Okay, absolutely.
So, Bill, that makes sense?
Yes, I have a draft, and I can get that out, and we can go there and review it on the 10th. That works fine.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Steve, we're going back to Mike.
Got the mic again, Mike.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Mike Yellick, 2040 Greenwalds Avenue, also known as Lights in Greenwalds. That's right. I run Lights in Greenwalds. I was deeply, I don't even know what the word is. I mean, I see this thing. If you support him, you are also a disgrace and should be hung for treason. That was Monday at 7:20. All right. Then he makes the apology. I made an ill-conceived comment about Trump supporters. I apologize for the comment. Then he goes on to say a friend, Patrick Foose, who had access to my personal page, is now widely sharing on social media a screenshot of the comment as a partisan political ploy to get me to resign. It won't happen. Then to my friend's brother, he sends a message, a direct message on Facebook with the middle finger emoji to you and your whacked out brother. Now, this is an elected official, a position of power. I don't know why it's in him to do any of that. And what you said wasn't ill-conceived. It was appalling. What's even more appalling is that you don't get it. Stop blaming it on a friend as a political ploy. It's a grand mistake by you. What you said about half of your constituents, you wouldn't have even made that disingenuous apology if you weren't outed. And South Whitehall Township does not need someone in leadership who proposes killing those disagreeing with his positions. You are about what is wrong with this country. You're exactly what's wrong with this country. The division, and I noticed you edited out your comment and your apology. You said to Mr. Foose should get a life. That was edited out. I get why you edited it out. I just don't wish you wouldn't have edited anything. I want to know how you really feel, to know how disqualified you are for this position. Obviously, you feel this way very much, or you would have not posted it to begin with. Why is an elected official in power promoting hate and division? You should resign, let a more fitted person take your seat. And I would have told you this, but you kept deleting my comment and then blocked me. And, you know, I know Mark Pinsley's going to come on here and defend it. And, you know, just a bunch of people who want to find a way to undo a local election. Now, that has nothing to do with it. This is not, listen, when Matt Mobilio got elected, I was like, okay, great. You know, I heard good things about him. And then this happened. And, you know, Becky stuck up for him and said he went off the cuff a little bit. That's not going off the cuff. That's offending half of the constituents in your county. So, Matt, I don't know. I would welcome you to come on the Mike Yellick show. We can talk about it on my show. But you'll probably block me from that too. So, I don't know. Very disappointed. This township, and Tori, I know you don't want to answer a lot, but please answer to this. Please answer to the people. The voice of the voiceless is me, and if I have to be the voice of the voiceless, I will. Matt, right now, is not qualified for this position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Steve?
Next on my list is Mr. John Chao.
Thank you very much. I'd like to read a letter that I wrote to Mr. Mobilio yesterday, and also copied the rest of the board because I feel so sad for him. I said, Mr. Mobilio, it's so sad to see someone commit such an unforced error as you did at the Facebook rant. No one will take you seriously from this day forward, certainly not a South Whitehall commissioner. So I take a risk for the sake of South Whitehall Township. It was evident from seeing you during the election season that you had a nature to speak before thinking, to initiate targeted attacks against those who you may disagree. With your nature to speak before listening, often you did not hear what the other person was saying or understand their position before attacking.
Leave my comment. Good work, Mike. Mike for commissioner.
Somewhere along the way, was not
excuse
having
me, John. I'm sorry. Mike Yellick, you still have your okay, good. I'm sorry, John. I just wanted you to be people to be able to hear you. His mic was still on. Please continue. I'm sorry.
So let me go back. With your nature to speak before listening, often you did not hear what the other person was saying or understand their position before attacking.
And he just took the FBI's word for it. So the fact that you had an FBI lawyer fraudulently altering documents, he didn't ask any questions. The fact that the Steele dossier had been completely repudiated by them.
Steve, can you mute him? Oh, there you go. Try it again, John. Sorry.
And John continues. Somewhere along the way, you must not have learned the foundational tenet of civilized society, which is seek first to understand, then to be understood. It works amazingly well, and you don't have to apologize so often. Watching you perform at BOC meetings early this year, I saw the attack person mentality arise many times, and it was unsightly, especially for someone elected to office who voiced a strong commitment to do the will of the people. It appeared that you may have forgotten that pledge, and it was unbecoming to witness. I even tried to help you at one of the first Zoom meetings when I read into the minutes the 8 heroic shared values. They are: treat others with uncompromising truth, lavish trust on your associates, mentor unselfishly, be receptive to new ideas regardless of their origin, take personal risk for the organization's sake, give credit where credit is due, do not touch dishonest dollars, put the interest of others before your own. I took a risk to read these in a true effort to head off what I saw coming based on your performance and attack methods. I hope that mentoring the Board of Commissioners as a group would allow you to digest and take to heart these values. At the following BOC meetings, I again watched you violate almost all of these values in the way you conducted yourself, and it was a sad thing to see happen when things could have been different. I truly believe that you've lost all credibility to lead and to be believed based on anything you may say from this point onward. This will haunt you because you've squandered your mantle of trust when you wrote what you did in your Facebook post. When you became a commissioner, you pledged to act in the best interest of the community, not yourself. And you have now placed a black eye on South Whitehall Township by your unseemly writing. When your personal feelings intercept the best interest of the community, then you, as a gentleman, must step down and allow the township to heal. This will not go away for you, and resigning now is the best thing for South Whitehall Township. I bear no ill will, but when leaders fail to lead, they must relinquish leadership to those who will. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chaya. Steve?
Next up, Mr. David Burke.
Thank you. President Morgan, I'd like to read a letter that I wrote to you and the other board members earlier today. I have a simple question. How can South Whitehall Township tolerate a member of the Board of Commissioners, the governing body of our township, who has the personal view that those who hold views different than his own are a disgrace and should be hung for treason? That view is beyond appalling, and it has not gone unnoticed by a vast number of citizens in the township and beyond the township. I trust that this issue will be addressed at tonight's meeting by the Board of Commissioners, that they will do the right thing, request the resignation of the commissioner in question. The credibility of our board, our governing body, and indeed of our local government itself going forward depends on this. Credibility is everything. As the day wore on, I noticed posts in social media outside of the township. I note that the Morning Call has an article, WFMZ has an article. We're getting a lot of publicity, but it certainly isn't the kind of publicity that the government here should cherish. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Robert Beam. I see Robert with us. Robert, are you here? I will come back to Robert. Next up is Mark Pinsley.
Thanks, Steve. Hey, Matt, I'm here to just say that I stand with you and your First Amendment rights. This is a very partisan conversation that I've heard. I'm sure these same people that are saying anything never said anything to the president when he said that the looting starts. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. Nor did they say anything when Trump suggested that migrants that cross the border will be shot. Nor did they say anything when military force should be used against protesters. Nor did they say anything when he called the press the enemy of the people. This, is your First Amendment right. You should absolutely not resign. These people that are talking to you would not take the same stance. Patrick Foos, who apparently decided that this was important to share with everyone, I have no issues with. However, I would hope that he would focus on Parkland and their high school and all of the students that are trying to graduate this year.
You're a freaking joke.
Yeah, so are you. And also, this was when I learned that Diane Kelly was still on the Planning Commission for the first time. And while it's illegal, it would be interesting to see whether or not that falls within the ethics of the guidelines of standing within, being on the board and being on the Planning Commission seems a little unethical as far as I'm concerned. And then in terms of Mike Yellick, I'm happy to come on anytime you want.
Commissioner Morgan, may I please respond, since the accusation was made that I may not be in an ethical position, to Lehigh County Controller Pinsley. Based on first-class township code, I am allowed to be on the Planning Commission as well as the Board of Commissioners.
I said it was vetted by. I said whether it was ethical. There's a question. That's the difference.
This was vetted by our solicitor, and it's certainly legal. absolutely legal, and I'm
I said
sorry
it
that
was
you had to
legal.
bring
I
that
already
up.
agreed with you
And
there.
could you please let me finish? You are allowed to speak. It is perfectly legal. I cleared it through our solicitor, and there was no conflict whatsoever. So I'm sorry that you're muddying the waters that we're talking about tonight by
We're talking about
adding other.
ethics, not, we're talking about ethics, not legality.
Okay, well, you questioned
all right,
my
we're gonna,
question. I don't
Diane,
appreciate that.
Diane and Mark, we're not gonna start an argument. This isn't what this is about. So let's refocus. Mark, do you want to finish up? Are you done with your comments, or
No, I'm done.
can
We
we?
support Matt Mobilio
Okay.
and his First Amendment rights.
Thank you. Steve. Who's
Next up, Robert Hodges. You with us,
Hi, it's
Robert?
actually Monica.
Yep. Hey, Monica.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. And today's a really sad day. Yesterday was a really sad day, and I'm going to read my letter to all of you, to the Board of Commissioners. I feel physically ill and deeply saddened as I write to you today. These past few days, months, and even years have been an especially horrific time in history. There is glaring lack of respect for others and disregard for human life. More important, there's a division of our society at a time when we need to unify, support, uplift, and respect each other and celebrate our unique differences. At such a time, we as a community turn to you, our local officials, for guidance, acceptance, reassurance, honesty, example, and leadership. Commissioner Mobilio, rather than uniting us and setting an example of peace, acceptance, and respect for all citizens, has divided us even further during this dreadful, uncertain time with his searing and threatening words, despite his campaign promise of humanity and accountability. He then blamed partisan politics when local government issues have absolutely nothing to do with party affiliation. They really don't, but rather the safety and well-being of the citizens he represents. Although he feels as though his work is not finished in South Whitehall, the community does not need such work. We crave an accepting, respectful leader who will lift us up and unite us and work for the good and well-being of the community rather than threaten us and tear us apart. He needs to take accountability for his own words and not place blame for those words. If he cannot handle stress, he should not hold the office of commissioner. I implore Commissioner Mobilio to resign, as this has tarnished his position, credibility, and his promise to the people of South Whitehall Township. And I implore each of you to do the right thing and encourage this resignation, or it will tarnish each commissioner's presence and credibility on the board and act as a blight on our local government. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, is Robert Beam still with us, or is he with us? Robert Beam. Right. That is the end of my list. I can't promise you that I caught everybody through there. So if there's anyone else that wants courtesy of the floor, please speak up or send a chat, and we'll wait a minute, Tori, I think, just to make sure that we get everybody who wants to comment. Actually, you know what? I just had one comment. Charles Eichner.
Yes, good evening. I'd just like to address Matthew's issues there on Facebook. I find it very disgraceful. He's disgraced himself. He's disgraced Board of Commissioners. He's disgraced the township. He represents all of us, not some of us. I'd like to ask that the Chief of Police look into this as a possible hate crime. I would also like to ask the board to specifically explain, if it is not their responsibility or ability to have him unseated, what is the manner to unseat an acting board commissioner?
So that's a legal question. I know from the standpoint of the board, we don't have that ability. I would defer to Attorney Zader to answer that particular question.
Outside of actual crimes having been committed where there are certain procedures, the ability to unseat a sitting commissioner in a first-class township essentially rests with Harrisburg. It's the governor and the state senate. Nothing can be done locally.
So, Steve, are there any more comments from the public?
I have one more follow-up question then. So what if this guy committed murder or something like that? You guys couldn't unseat him, wouldn't unseat him? I mean, you need a governor to do this in a locality? This seems like a local matter.
As I said in the beginning of my comment, in cases of certain crimes, there are perhaps different rules that apply, but that's not the case in this situation here.
Tori, I do not see anyone else. If Robert Beam is there, he's the only one that's on my list so far at the end.
This is Robert Hodges. Now I'd like to speak, if I may.
Certainly.
Oh, may I?
Yes, sure, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. First, I'd like to ask if Mr. Pinsley is still there.
I am.
Okay. You don't know the first thing about me. How dare you?
I'm sorry, I don't know who's speaking.
This is Robert Hodges, 1707 Penn's Crossing.
Okay, Robert.
How dare you claim what my motivations are for doing anything that I'm doing? And I will tell you right now, I'm an independent. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I possibly despise Trump more than you do. In fact, I hardly speak to my brother anymore. I used to speak to him every day. I hardly speak to him anymore because he's a Trump supporter and I'm not, and I can't stand it. So don't you dare tell me that my response to Commissioner Mobilio's statements is partisan politics. How dare you? You don't know anything. Apparently, you don't know anything about the people you represent.
Okay,
I don't
so
know
this is between two, I hate to do this, but this is between two independents. This isn't about Matt. This is between you and Mark. So I really don't want to get into an argument over this. That's not the purpose of courtesy of the floor. So if you can finish making your comment and we can move on.
Sure. Everybody has the right to First Amendment free speech. Absolutely right. And he had a right to say whatever he wanted to say. He also has to suffer the consequences of what he says. He has to be prepared to suffer those consequences. I guess it's going to be up to him to decide what those consequences will be, but the voters in the end will have the final say. And to blame someone simply because they made it public what he said, well, shame on you, Matt. You're the one who said it. Take responsibility. Don't blame Patrick Hughes for letting people know what he said. That's just almost as low as what you said in the first place. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'd like to make a comment on this subject matter. I was as appalled and dismayed and disappointed, and many emotions went through my head when I saw the post. There's no justification for it. Absolutely not. I am a registered Republican. I have my own views, and everybody deserves their own views. What Matt said was inappropriate. He recognized that. At this point, I truly believe it is up to Matt at this point to redeem himself and return the trust of the public and of the voters that voted for him. And that's going to be his challenge, and he will take it on, I have no doubt. I certainly think at the end, of this discussion, Matt, I believe you'll probably have a comment as well. I think it is something that, Matt, you certainly have learned from. And, you know, I'd be interested to hear your follow-up comment to some of the discussion that's been held tonight.
I mean, I just have to go back to what my initial statement was. You know, I made the mistake of, besides obviously the major mistake, I made the mistake of following along in some of this chatting that's going on. And, you know, there's just, unfortunately, no matter what I say and what I do, there's going to be folks who don't believe it, who don't care, or it's not going to be enough. I will reiterate what I said at the beginning, and that is that I'm not resigning. So again, anyone that came here hoping for that, it's not happening. I will work to earn trust back from the people. I think all of my fellow commissioners, whatever they think of me as far as personally or my comments, would agree that I am very dedicated to this job. I come prepared. I take this very seriously. It was a horrible error of judgment, a horrible thing that I said, but you know, I personally believe that South Wales Township is a better place with me as a commissioner than as opposed to me not being on the board. So, you know, for those reasons, I'm not resigning.
Okay, I will, unless there's any other courtesy of the floor this evening, I'm going to close courtesy of the floor. Steve, were there any other
statements before we close?
Absolutely, Commissioner Kelly.
Commissioner Mobilio, I want to preface my comments. When I talked after the primary, I told you that I thought you were a great representative on our zoning board, and I thought you would make a great commissioner. I'm not talking about partisan politics tonight. I don't believe in them. But I've spent the last 36 hours being inundated with messages, text, emails with our community in despair. So I have prepared some comments that I wanted to read. I want to thank the members of the community that have reached out to me, who put their trust in me and shared their hearts and their concerns. And for everyone on this call tonight who has done the same. These residents, I didn't ask them what their party was because it didn't matter to me. They represent all walks of life in South Whitehall. They represent our community. And it's clear to me from what I have read and heard that our community is wounded. The statement that you made, that if you support Trump, you're also a disgrace and should be hung for treason, are words that have been received as a threat to the very fabric of our township. A statement such as that tarnishes the office of commissioner, which I also hold. This is not how our board speaks to the public that we represent. We were all elected to represent everyone. So first and foremost, I have to say that we must, as an institution, protect our local government. This is about integrity, trust, and respect for all. So I'm asking myself the question, as I've asked for the last 36 hours, is this acceptable behavior from a commissioner that I sit alongside of? And I'm asking myself, what is the effect on our township? I think I know the answer to that because our public has been reaching out and informing me, and I read a comment earlier. Our community looks to us for leadership guidance and to give a sense of calm. This is not a question of someone's First Amendment's right to free speech, which we all have, but rather this is a matter of values of our community. This is not who South Whitehall is. And I firmly believe that she deserves better. And it pains me to say this, but I would like to make a motion for a vote of no confidence for Commissioner Mobilio and hereby ask for your resignation.
I second that motion.
So we would need a, what is, We would need a vote on this one then, Renee.
Commissioner Walk.
I just want to make a quick comment. I said it before, I'm going to come back to. I personally value trust and integrity. I uphold that for myself personally. I believe our board needs to have it, and we need to exemplify it in order to serve all of the people in the township. And that's the only reason I'm here, is to serve all the people in the township. And after taking in all of the written commentary and everything that everyone said tonight, I believe it's my duty to serve all the people in the township and cast aye for this motion.
Renee, I'm pretty sure this should have gone out to the public before open discussion.
There's a motion on the floor.
I guess well, there's a motion on the floor, and now I have a question. I come back to the fact that I absolutely agree with everybody's comments on Matt's statement. They were appalling. But I believe that this is Matt's challenge to address at this point. He needs to redeem himself with the public. I too got many emails and comments, and I take them all very, very seriously. But I think Matt, for you, this is something that you need now to redeem yourself with the residents of South Whitehall. I will say this: I don't believe that we as a township, we are not broken. We are not broken. Not one person is going to break us, our entire township. Matt was wrong in what he said. Absolutely. I believe he admitted that. That doesn't make it right. But we are not broken as a community. And this will not break us. It will only break us if we allow it to break us. And for that, I'm a little confused at what we're trying to accomplish. We as commissioners cannot make Matt resign. He's already publicly stated he has no intention of resigning. So I'm not sure where we're going with this.
Tori, I think it's important that the motion be voted on. I have no problem with that taking place. I think that it's important for everyone to know where everyone stands on that issue. I'll preface it by saying that regardless of what the outcome of that vote is, I'm not resigning, but for purposes of the commissioner all putting their commissioners all putting their votes on the record, that's happened.
I'd just like to add one comment. I understand, Matt, that you made a mistake, but this text of this message that this resident sent me, I've been asking myself today, how do we walk back from this as a commission? When he said to me, will you be asking Matthew Mobilio if he will be hanging me for treason? And I'm sorry, as a commissioner, how do we answer that? Because that's what you stated, and those are your words, and words have power, and they have meaning. And there are sometimes the consequences of words is not what we want them to be. But unfortunately, we have to deal with it. And I believe that's where we are. I did not make a motion to demand that you resign. I made a motion of no confidence and asking for your resignation. I can't force you to do that. I understand that. But we can certainly ask you. And I'm asking on behalf of dozens and dozens of people who have asked me to ask you that. That's my piece, Matthew. It's not personal. I am representing the public, and I'm bringing the voices of the community to this board tonight for consideration. Thank you for listening.
Okay, so I think Commissioner Walk voted. Is that correct?
Correct, I voted aye.
Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan?
I vote no.
Commissioner Sutton.
I just want to say a couple of things. Again, Commissioner Mobilio clearly made very, very bad remarks, unacceptable. And I will always respect all people of America. I will respect and support and salute the President of America, regardless of the party affiliation. I do believe that if Commissioner Mobilio wants to resign or feels that he needs to resign, it is up to him to make that decision. So I will vote no.
Commissioner Mobilio.
Abstain.
Thank you.
I do think that this was out of order. I thought there should have been public comment. I now think that those who voted against the First Amendment should now resign.
I think at this point, it's everybody has gotten a chance to make their statements, make it clear. I think for myself, I won't speak for any other commissioners. Again, I in no way, shape, or form support anything that Matt said or did. But what I do want to see moving forward is sincerity, Matt's ability to rebuild his trust in the people, which I truly believe he can do. And that's going to be a challenge, Matt. It's going to be a struggle for you. I have no doubt. But I believe that, you know, when you were elected by the people, I agree that there was a lot of people on the call tonight that had a lot of comments and concerns, and they're very well respected. But there's a large group of people out there, and you have to work with every single one of them. So this is going to be a huge hill to climb for you and for the community. But I will come back to say, I do not believe our community is broken. We are not broken as a community. And Matt, it will be your job to work hard to regain the integrity and trust of the residents in regards to your particular statement. So I'll just leave it at that.
Just a clarification, Commissioner Morgan, I used the word tarnished. I said our community was tarnished, not broken.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Personally, Matt,
Are there any further comments?
Personally, Matt, I think you should not call for the resignations of those that voted against the First Amendment right, your First Amendment rights.
Is that someone on the courtesy of the floor asking for a resignation?
No. I'm not. I appreciate the support and I appreciate the reference to the First Amendment, my right to say what I said. But I'm not going to hide behind that as a justification. You know, the reality is that everyone who's voiced their concerns tonight has a right to be upset and offended. And we can say things that we're allowed to say illegally. That doesn't mean that they don't have negative consequences. So I appreciate it. I wouldn't call for anyone who I even thought was stifling the speech to resign. And I also don't have any position on whether or not, you know, a vote of no confidence suggests that someone is attempting to stifle speech. So, but I appreciate the comments, Mark.
Okay, if there's no more comments or requests for courtesy of the floor, we have no executive session planned for tonight, so I do need a motion for adjournment.
Tori, I think, did we do the bills already?
Oh, my goodness gracious, we did not. I apologize. Stepping back. Our invoices and purchasing requisitions, have them reviewed by our Township Manager and Director of Finance. We do need a motion this evening to authorize that our checks be issued to pay our bills as tabulated. Do I hear said motion?
So moved.
Motion on the floor from Commissioner Kelly. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Stetton. All in favor? Or we have a roll call vote, please, Renee?
Commissioner Walk,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Mobilio,
Aye.
Commissioner Seton,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan.
Aye. Motion carries. Again, we do not have any executive session. I do need a motion for adjournment. We had one from Commissioner Kelly. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Walk. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.